We all know that ancient stories often carry messages of hope, courage, and divine intervention. But have you ever wondered what it would be like to witness the birth of a hero destined to change the world? Imagine waking up in a time where the very air hums with the promise of greatness, and a child's arrival is foretold to bring balance to the universe. In today's video, we will talk about the divine conception of Lord Rama and the incredible journey of King Dasharatha's sacrifice for a son. So let's not waste any time and let's begin. The air is thick with hope, and in the royal palace of Ayodhya, King Dasharatha stands alone, his heart heavy with the weight of a promise unfulfilled. For years, he has longed for an heir, a son who would carry on his legacy and rule the kingdom with wisdom and justice. But despite his many efforts, the joy of fatherhood has remained elusive. The weight of his disappointment grows with each passing year, and as the days blur into one another, the king finds himself turning more and more to the gods, his faith unwavering, but his patience running thin. In the quiet solitude of the palace, Dasharatha performs his sacred rituals, offering sacrifices and prayers with a devotion that echoes through the halls of the royal palace. Night after night, he calls out to the heavens, his voice steady with desperation, until one evening, as the stars flicker overhead, a divine presence descends upon him. The air shimmers, and the gods, moved by his relentless devotion, answer his plea. A voice, soft yet powerful, fills the chamber. Dasharatha, your prayers have been heard. The time has come to fulfill your heart's desire. You shall have a son who will be destined for greatness, who will restore righteousness to the world. The king, overwhelmed with gratitude and awe, falls to his knees. The promise is not just of a child, but of a force of divine power, one that will shape the fate of Ayodhya and the world beyond. The gods bestow upon him a divine boon, a promise that the child born to him will be a beacon of dharma, an incarnation of Vishnu himself. Dasharatha, with tears of joy streaming down his face, accepts the blessing, knowing that his destiny and that of his kingdom is forever changed. As news of the king's divine boon spreads throughout Ayodhya, the kingdom erupts in joy. The streets are filled with the sound of celebration, as the people, their hearts swelling with hope, begin to prepare for the birth of the child who will one day rule them. The temples are filled with offerings, and the air itself seems to vibrate with the energy of divine anticipation. It is said that on the day of Rama's birth, the skies will shine brighter, the winds will carry the scent of jasmine and sandalwood, and the very earth will rejoice. But in the palace, Dasharatha's thoughts are not only on the child yet to be born, but on the future of his kingdom. With his queen, Kaushalya, now pregnant with the divine child, he imagines the greatness that awaits Ayodhya. His heart swells with love and pride as he envisions the son who will one day lead the kingdom to glory. In the quiet of his chambers, he dreams of the future, and in those dreams, he sees a ruler, not only of strength but of wisdom and compassion, a ruler who will honor the gods and protect the people, ensuring that Ayodhya remains the seat of dharma. It is not long before the time arrives. The earth seems to pause as the moment of birth draws near, and the air is thick with sacred energy. The citizens of Ayodhya gather in the streets, waiting with bated breath, their eyes turned toward the royal palace, where the divine child is about to make his entrance into the world. The palace itself seems alive with the energy of the moment, its walls humming with anticipation. Inside, Queen Kaushalya, her face radiant with divine light, is surrounded by her attendants. The sacred waters of the Ganges have been poured over her, and the air is filled with the scent of jasmine and sandalwood as the palace prepares for the birth of the child who will change the world. As Kaushalya feels the first pangs of labor, Dasharatha stands by her side, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. The bond between them is deep, a reflection of the love they share for one another and for the child they are about to welcome into the world. As the birth pains intensify, a soft light fills the room, and the sound of 1,000 sacred hymns echoes through the palace. The moment is here. And then, as the divine child is born, a cry fills the air. a sound so pure and powerful that it seems to shake the very foundations of the earth. The baby, his skin glowing with an otherworldly light, is placed in the arms of his mother. In that moment, the world is silent, the stars above shining brightly as the people of Ayodhya rejoice. The child, whom they all know will one day be their savior, has arrived. Rama's birth is more than just the arrival of a child. It is the fulfillment of a promise made long ago by the gods, and it marks the beginning of a new era. The heavens themselves rejoice, their divine energy pouring down upon the earth as the child's first cries reverberate through the kingdom. The people of Ayodhya, their hearts swelling with joy and reverence, celebrate the birth of their future king, a king who will lead them toward righteousness and peace. With the birth of Rama, the kingdom of Ayodhya is forever transformed. The child's destiny is set in motion, and the course of history too is forever changed. In the coming years, Rama will grow to embody the virtues of dharma, strength, and compassion. But for now, the kingdom rejoices, knowing that the divine child has arrived and the world is, at long last, ready for the change he will bring. The sounds of celebration echo throughout Ayodhya, but amid the joy, a quiet realization sets in. Rama's journey, his trials and triumphs, will not be easy. His divine nature will be tested, and his path will be fraught with obstacles. Yet, the people of Ayodhya, under the blessings of the gods, are ready to embrace the challenges that lie ahead. The world has changed. A new era has begun. The morning dawns with an otherworldly radiance, as if the very heavens themselves have opened up to witness the arrival of Lord Rama. The sky above Ayodhya, which has always been a deep shade of blue, now glows with an ethereal light, brighter than any sunrise the kingdom has ever seen. A soft golden hue spreads across the landscape, and the air is filled with a sense of reverence and anticipation. It feels as though the entire universe has paused, holding its breath in the wake of this divine moment. The birds of Ayodhya, known for their vibrant songs, fall silent in the early hours, as if the earth itself recognizes the significance of this day. Cows and other animals, usually restless and unpredictable, remain unusually calm, grazing peacefully in the fields. The trees sway gently in the breeze, their leaves rustling in harmony with the divine energy that fills the air. Even the rivers seem to move more slowly, as if they too are taking part in this sacred occasion. Inside the royal palace, the air is thick with the scent of incense and flowers, as the attendants bustle around, preparing for the momentous birth. Queen Kaushalya, her face radiant with the glow of motherhood, is surrounded by the palace's most trusted healers and sages. The atmosphere is charged with sacred energy, as if the very fabric of reality has been altered by the imminent arrival of the divine child. King Dasharatha, ever watchful and filled with a deep sense of both joy and anxiety, paces nervously outside the queen's chambers. The anticipation is almost unbearable. As the day progresses, the tension in the palace reaches its peak. The divine signs are unmistakable. The sky shimmers with light, the winds carry a soft celestial hum, and the entire kingdom seems to pause in expectation. The people of Ayodhya, from the highest noble to the humblest servant, feel the weight of the moment. It is as though every soul in the city has been drawn together, united in their longing for the divine child who will restore righteousness to the earth. And then, with a sudden clarity, the moment arrives. A sharp, powerful cry breaks the stillness of the palace, echoing through the halls like the ringing of a divine bell. The sound of Rama's first cry reverberates across Ayodhya, carrying with it the weight of 1,000 prayers. The kingdom, which has long awaited this moment, now knows that the divine child has come. Outside the palace, the people of Ayodhya lift their faces to the sky, their hearts swelling with joy. A chorus of voices rises in unison, chanting blessings and prayers for the newborn prince. The air is filled with the sound of drums and conch shells, signaling the beginning of the great celebration. The kingdom rejoices as one, knowing that the child born on this sacred day will lead them toward an age of peace and prosperity. In the royal chambers, Kaushalya holds her newborn son in her arms, her face filled with awe and tenderness. Rama's small, radiant form is bathed in a divine glow, and his eyes, even in their infancy, seem to shine with a wisdom far beyond his years. The queen gazes down at her son, feeling an overwhelming sense of love and devotion. She knows that this child is not just a prince. He is the embodiment of divine will, sent to restore balance to the world. King Dasharatha, unable to contain his emotions, falls to his knees beside the queen, his heart overflowing with gratitude. He has waited for this moment his entire life, and now it has come to pass. He gently places his hand on Rama's tiny head, feeling the weight of the divine promise that has been fulfilled. The gods have heard his prayers, and the future of Ayodhya, and indeed the world, now lies in the hands of his son. The celebration in the palace grows louder, spilling out into the streets of Ayodhya. The people, their hearts filled with joy and reverence, light lamps and offer prayers to honor the birth of the divine child. It is as though the entire city has come alive with light, and the air itself is filled with the sacred energy that lingers long after the sounds of celebration fade. As night falls, the stars above Ayodhya shine brighter than they have ever shone before, as though they, too, are witnessing the birth of the child who will bring righteousness to the world. The moon rises, its pale light bathing the kingdom in a soft, divine glow. In that moment, the people of Ayodhya know, without a doubt, that they are living in a time unlike any other. The birth of Lord Rama is not just the arrival of a child. It is the arrival of hope itself, a symbol of the divine order that will guide the world through the trials and challenges to come. The kingdom, united in its joy, embraces the future with open arms. They know that Rama's journey will be one of great trials and triumphs, but they also know that the child born on this day is destined to lead them toward a brighter, more righteous world. As the celebrations continue, the people of Ayodhya stand together, bound by the shared knowledge that their lives, their futures, and their very souls are now intertwined with the divine fate of Lord Rama. As the days following Rama's birth unfold, Ayodhya is filled with a joy unlike any the kingdom has ever known. The streets are lined with flowers, and the air hums with the melodies of joyous music. Everywhere, the people celebrate, their voices rising in unison, singing songs of blessing and praise for the divine child. The royal palace is transformed into a haven of festivity, where grand feasts are laid out for all to partake in. Servants, priests, and nobles alike gather to honor the arrival of Rama, their hearts swelling with pride and devotion. The kingdom of Ayodhya, once filled with the usual sounds of daily life, now vibrates with the pulse of something greater. The land itself seems to rejoice, as if the very earth recognizes the divine presence that has graced it. The rivers flow with renewed vigor, the trees sway in a dance of blessing, and the animals of the kingdom, usually so distant, now draw near to the royal palace, as though drawn by an unseen force. King Dasharatha, overcome with emotion, watches his kingdom celebrate. His heart, long burdened by the fear of losing his dynasty, now swells with an overwhelming sense of hope. His son, born not just of flesh and blood, but of divine essence, promises the restoration of dharma, the very fabric that binds the universe together. Rama's arrival is not simply the birth of a prince, but the manifestation of righteousness itself. As the days of celebration stretch into weeks, the atmosphere in Ayodhya remains charged with the excitement of the new beginning. People from all corners of the kingdom gather in the streets, bringing offerings of food, flowers, and incense to honor the newborn prince. The wealth of the land, both material and spiritual, is laid before the divine child, who is already seen as the embodiment of virtue and the future of the kingdom. Despite the outward festivity, there is a quiet, almost reverent energy that permeates the kingdom. The citizens of Ayodhya are not only celebrating Rama's birth, they are also acutely aware that they stand at the threshold of a new era. The air is thick with the weight of history, and each moment feels like a turning point in the fate of the world. They know that this child, destined to be more than just a king, will be a beacon of hope and justice for the ages to come. In the quiet spaces of the palace, Dasharatha and his queens, Kaushalya, Sumitra, and Kaikeyi, reflect on the significance of this moment. For years, they had longed for a child, but none had arrived with such divine promise. The kingship, which had always seemed like a burden, now feels like a sacred duty. Rama's birth, they know, is the fulfillment of a higher purpose, a purpose that will stretch beyond their lifetimes and ripple through the generations to come. As the queens gaze upon their son, their hearts filled with love and reverence, they are also filled with a quiet understanding of the challenges that lie ahead. They know that Rama's life will not be without struggle, that he will face trials that no ordinary child could endure. But in this moment, they feel only the weight of divine grace, a sense that Rama's path is already guided by the gods themselves. And beyond the earthly realm, the gods watch over the newborn prince. In the celestial realms, Vishnu, the preserver of the universe, gazes down upon the kingdom of Ayodhya, his divine heart swelling with love for the child who is his earthly incarnation. It is said that, in that moment, the heavens themselves are filled with light and joy. The gods, who have long awaited the arrival of the one who will restore balance to the universe, rejoice in unison, their voices joining in a celestial hymn. Rama's birth is not just a moment in time. It is the fulfillment of a cosmic plan, the return of Dharma to the earth. As the celebrations continue in Ayodhya, the quiet reflection of the divine plan unfolds in the hearts of the gods. They know that Rama's journey is only beginning, and that the path he will walk will be one of great sacrifice and ultimate triumph. But for now, the kingdom rejoices, knowing that the child born under the blessed stars is the one who will bring peace to the world and vanquish the forces of evil. In the days that follow, as the kingdom returns to its daily rhythms, the citizens of Ayodhya find themselves carrying a new sense of purpose. The birth of Rama is not just a moment of joy. It is the dawning of a new era, a time when the forces of good will rise and righteousness will once again reign supreme. As the people of Ayodhya continue to honor the child, they also begin to prepare for the challenges that will come. For they know, deep in their hearts, that the birth of Lord Rama is but the beginning of a story far greater than any they can imagine. And in the midst of the celebrations, they understand that they are part of something much larger than themselves, a divine plan that will shape the future of the world. In the stillness of the royal chambers, as the gods watch over the newborn prince, the future of Ayodhya and the fate of the entire world rests in the hands of the divine child, who will one day become the beacon of righteousness for all. As the days pass, the kingdom of Ayodhya remains in the grip of joyous celebration. But among the songs of triumph and the sounds of revelry, a quiet gathering takes place in the heart of the royal palace. Here, the sages and rishis, revered for their wisdom and deep connection to the divine, come together to offer their blessings and insights. They have seen the stars align in a way that only the gods can orchestrate. They know that the birth of Lord Rama is no ordinary event. His coming has been foretold, and his future holds not just greatness, but trials beyond measure. The air in the room is heavy with expectation as the sages prepare to speak. Their faces, lined with age and experience, radiate the kind of calm that only those who have spent lifetimes in pursuit of wisdom can possess. As they look toward the infant Rama, their eyes gleam with the knowledge of what is to come. They have gazed upon the cosmic wheel, seen the threads of fate, and now, with deep reverence, they turn their focus toward the child who will one day restore balance to the world. One of the eldest sages, his voice as ancient as the land itself, steps forward. He speaks of the divine plan that has led to Rama's birth. His words are measured, each syllable carrying the weight of countless lifetimes of study and devotion. This child, he begins, is no ordinary mortal. He is an incarnation of Vishnu, sent to walk the earth and restore Dharma. His destiny is bound to the cosmos, and his path will be one of great trials. The room falls into a reverent silence, as every word the sage speaks settles deep into the hearts of the listeners. Rama, even as a newborn, is already destined for greatness, yet this greatness will come at a great cost. The sage continues, foretelling the battles that Rama will face, the darkness he will confront, and the tests he will endure. Rama will rise to become a warrior of righteousness, a king who will guide his people through the trials of the world. But his journey will not be easy. The forces of darkness, jealous of his light, will seek to destroy him. They will challenge him at every turn, and only through great sacrifice and unwavering devotion will he triumph. Another sage, standing beside the first, nods in agreement, his eyes clouded with a deep knowing. The path of this child will be fraught with sorrow. He will be exiled from his home, stripped of the comforts of his royal life, and forced to live among the wilderness. His very family will be tested, and yet, through all this, he will remain steadfast in his duty. The world will watch him closely, and the forces of evil will seek to break him, but they will not succeed. The sages speak of the future in hushed tones, their voices blending into a single current of prophecy. They see the vastness of Rama's future, the battles he will fight, the kingdom he will lead, and the divine virtues that will guide him. Yet, even in the knowledge of his greatness, they also see the profound loneliness that will come with his journey. Rama's path will not be one of ease, and though the heavens have chosen him for this task, the road he walks will be filled with heartache and struggle. In the presence of these great sages, King Dasharatha listens in rapt attention, his heart heavy with both pride and fear. He now understands that Rama's destiny is not merely to be a prince, but to be a savior, one who will carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. Dasharatha's heart swells with love for his son, but it is tempered by the knowledge that the child he so dearly cherishes will one day face unimaginable challenges. As the prophecies unfold, the sages also speak of the divine forces that will aid Rama in his quest, alliances that will be formed with the gods themselves, as well as mortal warriors and friends who will stand by him in the face of overwhelming odds. They foresee the emergence of great allies, Hanuman, the mighty monkey god, and Sugriva, the exiled king, who will join Rama in his battles. These friendships, formed through divine will and mutual respect, will be the pillars upon which Rama will build his strength. But despite the reassurance that divine forces will guide him, the sages do not shy away from the darker truths of Rama's fate. They speak of the trials that will test his very soul, the moments when his integrity will be challenged, and the moments of doubt he will face. Yet they also affirm that through his unwavering commitment to dharma, Rama will overcome these trials, emerging as the hero the world needs. As the final words of prophecy are spoken, a profound stillness settles over the gathering. The air, once heavy with the weight of predictions, now feels lighter, as though the burden of knowing has been shared. The sages, having glimpsed the divine journey ahead, now stand in quiet reverence before the child whose destiny is already unfolding. The story of Rama, from this point forward, is no longer just a tale of a child born to a king. It is a tale of the eternal struggle between light and dark, the forces of good and evil, and the triumph of righteousness over adversity. The fate of the kingdom, the world, and even the gods themselves is intertwined with this divine child. And as the gathering begins to disperse, the air around Ayodhya feels charged with a sense of purpose. The kingdom, its citizens, and even the gods themselves now know that Rama's journey is not just a future event. It is already in motion, unfolding with each passing moment. The stage is set, and the heroic journey of Lord Rama is about to begin. As the days pass, Ayodhya's streets remain bathed in joy, the sounds of celebration echoing through the air. But within the walls of the royal palace, King Dasharatha is no longer swept up in the elation of Rama's birth. Instead, he finds himself alone with his thoughts, deeply troubled by the weight of the divine prophecy that has been placed upon his son. Though his heart swells with pride and love for his newborn son, Dasharatha cannot ignore the deeper, quieter truth that haunts him. The sage's words echo in his mind, the foretelling of Rama's greatness and the challenges he will face. Dasharatha has always been a man of duty. He has ruled his kingdom with honor and strength, and he has long understood the sacrifices that leadership demands. But now, with his son at the center of the divine plan, Dasharatha realizes that the sacrifices required of Rama will be far beyond anything he ever imagined. As the king gazes out over the kingdom he has ruled for so many years, his heart aches. Rama, destined for greatness, will not know the peaceful life of a prince, shielded from the world's hardships. The child he has longed for, the one who will carry on his legacy, will be tested in ways that no father could ever wish for his son. Dasharatha, for all his strength and wisdom, feels an overwhelming sense of helplessness. He knows the road ahead for Rama will be a path fraught with challenges, trials that will strip away the comforts of the palace and force him to walk the earth as an exile. The king's thoughts turn to the moment when he made the promise to the gods, the vow that had led to Rama's divine birth. Dasharatha's heart was full then, his desire for an heir so great that he offered everything, his kingdom, his soul, to the gods. But now, standing on the precipice of his son's destiny, Dasharatha wonders if the price of that promise was too high. If the child he loves more than life itself is to fulfill his divine purpose, there will be no escape from the burdens that lie ahead. In the quiet solitude of his chambers, Dasharatha is torn. The love he feels for Rama is pure, but it is complicated by the fear that he, as a father, is unable to protect his son from the trials that await. How can he prepare Rama for the world that is already set in motion for him? How can he shield his son from the inevitable pain that will accompany his journey, knowing that Rama's path is one of sacrifice, duty, and inevitable heartbreak? The king finds himself pacing restlessly, weighed down by his thoughts. The vision of the future, once a shining beacon of hope, now feels like an immense shadow, stretching long and dark before him. He knows that Rama's life will be more than just a series of battles. It will be a test of the very fabric of his soul. The forces of darkness, the struggles of dharma, and the emotional toll of leadership will pull at him, demanding that he give up everything, including the love of his family, for the greater good of the kingdom and the world. And yet, Dasharatha cannot deny the undeniable truth. This is what must be. His son is not merely a prince. He is a force of divine righteousness, sent to restore balance to the universe. The prophecy is set, and the kingdom's future is bound to the path that Rama must walk, no matter the cost. The king has always understood that leadership requires sacrifice, but he never imagined that the sacrifice would be so deeply personal, that the price would be his son. In these moments of reflection, Dasharatha begins to understand the true burden of kingship, not the pomp of royal ceremonies or the weight of decisions made in the council chambers, but the quiet, crushing responsibility of ensuring that the divine will is carried out, even at the cost of one's own happiness. The king's heart aches for his son, and yet he knows that his duty is clear. Rama must fulfill his purpose, and Dasharatha must prepare to let him go. But how does a father prepare to part with the very child he has longed for, the one who has come to him by divine grace, only to be torn away by the demands of a destiny that is beyond their control? As Dasharatha contemplates the challenges ahead, the internal conflict grows more pronounced. He is torn between the love he has for his son and the duty he has sworn to uphold. The weight of the prophecy presses down on him, and he knows that the time will come when he will have to make a decision that will shape not only his son's future, but the future of Ayodhya and the world. His mind races as he wonders what sacrifices will be asked of him, as a king and as a father. And in the silence of the palace, with only the faint sounds of the kingdom's celebrations drifting through the walls, Dasharatha begins to feel the cold grip of inevitability. His son will face hardships that will test him to his very core, and there will be no easy answers. The prophecy has been set in motion, and Dasharatha must find the strength to stand by his son, even when that means letting him go. And so, with a heavy heart, Dasharatha faces the truth that he cannot avoid the path laid out before his family. His love for Rama is fierce, but he now understands that the divine will that governs their lives cannot be altered. The moment of reckoning will come, and when it does, he must stand firm for his son, even if it means standing apart from him. The king's internal struggle is far from over, and the tension that brews within the royal family is palpable. Dasharatha's fears, his doubts, and his love will all play a part in the events that are to unfold. The stage is set for Rama's journey, but the path forward is clouded with uncertainty. As the years pass, the kingdom of Ayodhya thrives under the benevolent rule of King Dasharatha, but within the walls of the royal palace, it is Rama's growing presence that begins to shine most brightly. The young prince, who was once a tiny infant in the arms of his mother, is now a strong and noble boy, a reflection of the virtues that will one day make him the greatest ruler the kingdom has ever known. Rama's compassion is evident in the smallest of actions. He often stops to help the elders of Ayodhya, listening to their stories with genuine interest, his heart full of reverence for their wisdom. The people of the kingdom, from the noblest to the humblest, see in him a reflection of all the best qualities of a leader. His kindness, his patience, and his humility set him apart from other princes. He is not just a ruler by birthright, but a true servant of his people, and it is clear to all who meet him that his future will be one of great virtue. But it is not just his compassion that draws people to him. Rama's bravery, too, begins to take shape. From an early age, he trains in the art of archery, his skills developing quickly under the guidance of the finest teachers in Ayodhya. With every arrow he releases, Rama demonstrates not only his physical prowess, but also his discipline and focus. He does not seek glory, but strives only to master his craft, knowing that the strength he gains is meant for the greater good, not for personal gain. As the years unfold, the people of Ayodhya begin to speak of Rama with reverence, not just as the son of King Dasharatha, but as a hero in his own right. His commitment to dharma, the moral and spiritual law that governs all of life, is unwavering. His sense of justice is deep, and he has an innate understanding of right and wrong that surpasses his years. When disputes arise within the kingdom, it is Rama's counsel that is sought, for his wisdom is beyond compare. Despite the praise he receives, Rama remains humble, never allowing his growing fame to sway his heart. His father, King Dasharatha, watches with a mixture of pride and quiet concern. Rama is everything a king could hope for in a son, yet Dasharatha knows that the day will come when his son will be called upon to make decisions that will test his very soul. He can see the greatness that lies ahead, but he also feels the weight of that greatness settling onto Rama's shoulders. As the prince grows, so too does his understanding of the world beyond the palace walls. He begins to ask questions about the struggles of the people, about the challenges they face in their daily lives. His interest extends beyond the comforts of royal life. He seeks to understand the struggles of the farmers, the merchants, and the soldiers who serve his kingdom. He spends time with them, learning from their experiences, and in turn teaching them the principles of dharma that will guide them toward righteousness. King Dasharatha, watching his son's development with both pride and trepidation, knows that Rama's time in the palace is coming to an end. His son has grown into a young man, his virtues shining brightly, but he is still sheltered within the walls of Ayodhya. He is still untouched by the harsh realities of the world outside. The kingdom may love Rama, but he has yet to face the challenges that will define his true character. It is not long before those challenges begin to take shape. The peace of Ayodhya, which has lasted under the reign of King Dasharatha, is about to be tested. The time has come for Rama to step beyond the palace, to face a world that is not as kind as the one he has known. One fateful day, as Rama continues his training in the palace courtyard, a messenger arrives with troubling news. The kingdom is facing an external threat, and the time has come for Rama to take on his first major challenge. His skills will be tested not in the comfort of the palace, but in the real world, where every decision carries weight and consequences. The messenger's words are heavy with urgency. The demoness Surpanakha is causing trouble in the forests near the kingdom's borders. She has been attacking travelers and causing unrest. The kingdom must act swiftly, or her attacks will spread. Rama, though still young, is not hesitant. His training, his virtues, and his commitment to dharma have prepared him for this moment. He understands that his destiny, though guided by the gods, requires him to take action in the world. With his bow in hand and his heart resolute, Rama prepares to leave the palace, knowing that his journey into the world beyond the walls of Ayodhya is about to begin. The transition from his sheltered childhood to the external world marks the beginning of his heroic journey. No longer will he be a prince merely trained for leadership. Now, he is a warrior, a protector of the kingdom, a figure destined to confront the forces of darkness. The challenges ahead will test every part of his being, but he steps forward with the knowledge that the divine plan is unfolding before him, and his role in it is as clear as the stars above Ayodhya. The time has come for Rama to leave the safety of the palace and face the trials that await. His journey is no longer one of preparation. It is the beginning of a new chapter in his life, one that will shape his future and the future of the world. With the first challenge before him, Rama takes his place as a hero in the making. The kingdom of Ayodhya buzzed with excitement, for the time had come for the great festival, a celebration that would mark not only the coming of spring, but also a divine challenge that would change the course of the future. It was the day of the Swayamvara, the ceremony in which Sita, the beautiful and virtuous princess of Mithila, would choose her suitor. But this was no ordinary contest for a bride. The challenge that awaited the princes and kings of the land was one that would demand more than just strength or skill. It would require something divine. The bow of Lord Shiva, a weapon of immense power, stood at the center of the grand hall. It was no mere relic. It was a symbol of strength and virtue, one that could only be strung by someone chosen by the gods. It had been placed there at the request of King Janaka of Mithila, for he sought the bravest and most worthy suitor for his daughter. The bow, massive and imposing, was said to be so powerful that no man, except one of divine nature, could even lift it, let alone string it. As the day wore on, the assembly of kings and princes tried their hands at the challenge. One by one, they failed, their strength and will powerless against the great bow. The crowd watched in silence, their eyes flicking to Sita, who sat in her pavilion, her gaze soft and contemplative. She had been promised to the man who could complete the task, and though her heart was heavy with the knowledge of the great challenge, she trusted that fate would guide her to the right one. Amidst the many suitors, there stood Rama, calm, poised, and yet carrying with him the weight of divine purpose. He had already proven his strength in countless ways. Yet today, he knew that this challenge was more than just a test of muscle. This was his destiny, laid out before him, a sign that his journey was about to begin in earnest. He had spent years in preparation, his heart and mind sharpened by training and discipline. But in this moment, he was not merely a prince. He was the divine warrior, the embodiment of righteousness, about to make his first public mark on the world. King Dasharatha, watching from the gathering, felt a swelling pride as he looked at his son. His heart, full of love and concern, also knew that this was no ordinary contest. The bow of Shiva was a divine weapon, and it was not meant to be won lightly. But his faith in Rama was unwavering, and deep within him, he understood that this was a moment the gods had set in motion long before. With a quiet strength, Rama stepped forward, his eyes steady as he approached the great bow. The assembly held its breath, watching in anticipation. His movements were graceful and deliberate as he knelt to lift the bow from its stand. The bow seemed to respond to his touch, almost as if it recognized the divine power that coursed through him. In a single, effortless motion, Rama lifted the massive bow with ease, the tension in the hall palpable as the people realized the impossible was about to unfold. He stood tall, a beacon of strength and virtue, as he turned his attention to the task at hand. The crowd fell into a stunned silence as Rama grasped the string of the bow, his fingers brushing it lightly. With a deep breath, he pulled, and in that moment, the impossible became reality. The bow, which had resisted the strength of the greatest kings and warriors in the land, yielded to Rama's divine power. The string, drawn back with a force that seemed to shake the heavens themselves, was pulled taut as Rama stood firm, his resolve unshaken. The sound of the bowstring was deafening, like the crack of thunder splitting the sky. The earth seemed to tremble beneath his feet as Rama drew the bow with ease, and in one swift, effortless motion he released it. The bow, now strung, was the sign that Rama had fulfilled the divine challenge, that he was the one chosen by fate. Sita, watching from her pavilion, felt a rush of emotion overwhelm her. Her heart swelled with admiration for the prince who had shown such strength and grace. But it was more than just his physical power that moved her. It was the righteousness and virtue that radiated from him, the quiet dignity with which he carried himself. She knew, deep in her heart, that this was the man she was meant to be with, the one who would not just be her husband, but the protector of all that was good and just in the world. The assembly erupted into cheers, the sounds of celebration rising like a wave. Rama had not only succeeded in the task, but had done so with a grace and dignity that no one could deny. His actions spoke of a divine power that surpassed the limits of mere mortals. His victory was not just physical, it was symbolic, a sign that his destiny as a hero was now beginning to unfold in full force. King Dasharatha, though filled with pride, also felt a pang of sorrow deep within him. His son had proven himself, but he knew that the path ahead would not be as easy as the bow he had strung. Rama's victory in this moment was only the beginning, and his journey was far from over. Rama, now having won Sita's hand, turns to face the world beyond the palace walls. The cheers of the people still echo in his ears, but he knows that his victory is only a moment in time, a brief glimpse into the future that awaits him. The true challenges lie ahead. Real trials that will test his heart and his soul, challenges that will push him to his limits and beyond. But for now, the world celebrates, and Rama's heart is calm. His journey, guided by Dharma, has truly begun. And with that, the young prince's journey beyond Ayodhya, into a world of new and daunting challenges, begins to take shape. His first major test is complete, but the path ahead is filled with trials that only a hero of divine nature can face. The kingdom of Ayodhya, once filled with the sounds of joy and the warmth of celebration, now stands in stunned silence. The vibrant energy that had once radiated throughout the palace fades, and the streets of the kingdom are heavy with a somber, unspoken grief. For the first time, the light in Ayodhya seems to dim, as though the very earth itself is mourning the loss of the beloved prince who had once been its shining star. It all began with a promise made long ago by King Dasharatha to his wife, Kaikeyi, who had once saved his life in battle. In the quiet chambers of the royal palace, Kaikeyi had long nurtured a desire to see her own son, Bharata, ascend to the throne. When her moment arrived, she invoked the two boons that Dasharatha had once vowed to grant her, using them to fulfill her long-hidden wish. With a heavy heart, the king was forced to honor her request, no matter the personal cost. The first boon demanded that Rama, his eldest and most beloved son, be exiled to the forest for 14 years. The second boon required that Bharata be crowned king in his place. The weight of these requests was unbearable to Dasharatha, but his duty as a king and husband left him with no other choice. The throne of Ayodhya, once promised to Rama, would now be handed over to his younger brother, and the hero who had brought his kingdom to such glory would have to leave it all behind. When Dasharatha spoke those fateful words, a hush fell over the royal court. The shock of his declaration rippled through the hall, and the faces of the assembled courtiers were filled with disbelief. How could it be that Rama, the embodiment of righteousness, would be sent into exile? How could a kingdom built on such strength and virtue be so suddenly torn apart? Rama, though deeply troubled by his father's sorrow, accepted his fate with grace and honor. His commitment to Dharma, the moral and divine order, was unwavering, and he understood that this was a test from the gods. His life, no longer bound by the comforts of royalty, would now be shaped by the hardships of the forest, a place where only those truly devoted to Dharma could survive. With a heavy heart, Rama made his way to the royal gardens, where Sita and his brother Lakshmana joined him. The three of them, bound by love and duty, knew that their lives would never be the same. Sita, her face pale with grief, stood by his side, her unwavering devotion to him clear in her eyes. She would not be left behind, and Rama could not bear to live without her. Together they would face the unknowns of the forest, their love and courage guiding them through the trials ahead. The people of Ayodhya, witnessing the prince's departure, lined the streets in silence. Their hearts ached as they watched their beloved ruler, once the hope of their kingdom, walk away into the wilderness. The women wept for the loss of the prince who had embodied everything good and virtuous. The men, though filled with sorrow, bowed their heads in respect, understanding that this was not a moment of defeat, but a necessary sacrifice for the greater good. As the royal procession made its way out of the city, the people's devotion to Rama was palpable. The streets were filled with the sound of chanting, prayers and blessings, as the citizens, both young and old, expressed their undying loyalty. They knew that even in exile, Rama would remain their king, the guiding light of Ayodhya's future. The sorrow was deep, but it was also tinged with a sense of honor and reverence for the prince who had chosen duty over personal glory. The final moment of farewell came as Rama passed through the city gates, leaving behind the life he had known. Ayodhya, now forever changed, was left in the hands of a new ruler. But the love for Rama would never fade. His departure was a turning point for the kingdom, a moment of profound loss, but also one of unwavering devotion to the ideals of Dharma. As Rama set foot into the wilderness, the reality of his exile began to settle in. The vast untamed forest loomed before him, a place where danger and uncertainty awaited at every turn. The comfort of the palace, the familiar faces of his people, and the warmth of his father's love were now behind him. The life of luxury and privilege he had known was now a distant memory, and ahead of him lay only the challenges of survival, both physical and spiritual. In the forest, Rama would not be shielded by royal protection. He would face the harshness of nature, the trials of the unknown, and the threats of the world beyond the palace walls. But he knew that it was in this wilderness, in the testing of his soul and his strength, that he would truly become the hero he was destined to be. It was here, far from the comforts of his home, that his journey into greatness would unfold. As he walked deeper into the forest, his heart filled with both sadness and resolve. The kingdom, the people, and the life he had once known were now far behind him. The world of the palace was gone, and ahead lay the unknown wilderness, where the divine forces that guided him would test him in ways he could not yet imagine. And so, with each step he took, the story of Rama's exile began in earnest. The trials that awaited him would shape him into the divine hero, the warrior of righteousness that he was destined to become. The life of comfort was behind him. The forest, with all its perils and lessons, was where his journey would truly begin. The days in the forest passed slowly, each one a quiet testament to the life of simplicity that Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana had chosen. The comforts of the palace, once so familiar, now seemed like a distant dream, fading in the warmth of the sun-dappled forest. The air was thick with the scent of pine and earth, and the gentle rustle of leaves filled the silence of their daily routine. Their new life was one of discipline and devotion, a far cry from the opulence they had once known. Rama, ever the disciplined prince, embraced the simplicity of their existence with grace and acceptance. His days were spent in prayer, meditation, and the honing of his skills, for he knew that the time would come when his strength would be tested, not only by the forces of nature, but by the challenges that lay in the world beyond the forest. This isolation, though difficult, was a gift, offering him the space to reflect on his purpose, his duty, and the divine plan that guided his every step. For Sita, the life in the forest was both a trial and a revelation. She had left the comforts of the palace behind without hesitation, determined to stand by her husband's side through whatever challenges they might face. Her devotion to Rama was unshakable, and she knew that their bond, stronger than any material wealth, would see them through even the darkest times. Though the days were often long and filled with hardships, Sita found solace in the quiet beauty of the forest. She drew strength from the rhythm of their life, from the simple tasks of cooking and gathering, and from the unspoken bond she shared with her husband and brother-in-law. Lakshmana, ever loyal and devoted to his elder brother, never left Rama's side. He too embraced the rigors of their new life in the forest. Together, the three of them formed a tight-knit unit, bound by love, duty, and an unbreakable commitment to dharma. Their days were filled with quiet conversations, shared moments of reflection, and the steady resolve that they would face whatever came their way, together. Though they found peace in their simplicity, the forest was not without its dangers. The untamed wilderness held threats at every turn: wild animals, treacherous terrain, and the dark forces that lurked in the shadows. Yet, despite these dangers, the trio remained steadfast. Their resolve was unshakable, for they understood that their trials were not merely physical, they were spiritual too. In the stillness of the forest, Rama found clarity, his heart and mind sharpening as he meditated on his purpose in this life. Sita, ever patient and kind, remained a source of light for him, and Lakshmana's loyalty was an unwavering anchor. The forest, though beautiful, was also a place of profound isolation. Without the distractions of palace life, Rama had the time to truly contemplate his journey. He often spent long hours under the shade of the trees, his mind drifting to the kingdom he had left behind, to Ki, the people who had once adored him, and to the father he had reluctantly left behind in the royal palace. Yet, even in his moments of solitude, he never lost sight of his dharma. He knew that the path he walked was not one of his choosing, but one that had been set before him by the divine will. The exile, though painful, was a necessary part of his destiny, and in the quiet of the forest, Rama began to understand the true weight of his role in the cosmic order. Sita, too, reflected on the trials they had faced. Though the loneliness of their new life sometimes weighed heavily on her heart, she found strength in her faith and in the love that bound her to Rama. Her thoughts often wandered back to Ayodhya, to the life she had left behind, and to the moment when the news of Rama's exile had torn at her soul. But despite the sorrow, she knew that her place was by her husband's side. She had been chosen to walk this path with him, and she would not turn away. As for Lakshmana, he too found time to reflect. Though his loyalty to Rama was his guiding principle, the solitude of the forest allowed him to explore the deeper meaning of his devotion. His love for his brother was unconditional, and he too found strength in the simplicity of their life, knowing that the challenges they faced would shape not just their bodies but their spirits as well. But just as the tranquility of their life in the forest seemed to settle into a quiet rhythm, the peace was shattered by an unexpected arrival. One afternoon, as the sun began to dip behind the trees, a figure appeared on the horizon, a figure that would forever alter the course of their lives in the forest. The figure was none other than Surpanakha, the demoness sent by Ravana, the mighty king of Lanka. Her arrival was marked by an unsettling silence in the forest. Her presence, dark and malicious, pierced the peaceful air like a storm cloud on the horizon. Surpanakha's heart was filled with rage and desire, and her twisted intentions would soon set the stage for a series of events that would shake the very foundations of Rama's world. Surpanakha, seeking to fulfill the commands of her brother, Ravana, approached the trio with a cunning smile. She had been watching them from the shadows for some time, and now her time had come to strike. In her heart, she believed that she could break their unity, sow discord between the prince and his wife, and begin the unraveling of the righteous world Rama sought to protect. But it was in this moment, the moment when the forces of darkness first began to encroach upon their peaceful life, that Rama's journey would truly begin. The challenges they had faced so far were nothing compared to the trials that lay ahead. As Surpanakha stepped forward, her eyes filled with malice, the quiet life of the forest began to fade away, and the first true test of Rama's strength and dharma began to unfold before him. The air in the forest had turned still, heavy with an unnatural silence. Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana, unaware of the danger that loomed just beyond the tree line, continued their peaceful life, the serenity of their exile providing them with some solace amid their hardships. But the calm was not meant to last. From the shadows, a figure emerged. Surpanakha, the demoness sent by her brother Ravana to sow chaos in the lives of those who had been chosen by destiny. Surpanakha, driven by the dark desire to unsettle and destroy, saw in Rama a figure who embodied everything she had come to despise: righteousness, strength, and virtue. Her gaze, burning with lust and fury, fixed upon the prince who stood as a beacon of light in the wilderness. She had heard of his greatness, his beauty, and now, standing before him in the forest, she believed that she could make him hers. With a sly smile and a heart full of wicked intent, Surpanakha approached Rama, her eyes glinting with a desire that was as dangerous as it was forbidden. She spoke to him, her voice soft and seductive, trying to charm him with false sweetness. "You are the most handsome of all men, Rama," she purred. "I have come to offer myself to you. Leave your wife and come with me. Together we shall rule over all the kingdoms of the world." Rama, his heart bound by dharma and the love he held for Sita, regarded the demoness with quiet disdain. He could see through her deception, her wicked intentions clearly written in her eyes. With a calm and unwavering voice, he rejected her advances. "I am already bound by duty to my wife Sita, and my heart is not swayed by promises of power or pleasure," he said. "Go back to your brother Ravana and tell him that it is not in the nature of righteous men to succumb to such temptations." Surpanakha's eyes narrowed, her face contorting with rage as her advances were met with rejection. She could not fathom a man, especially one as handsome as Rama, turning away from her offer. Her pride, already bruised by the denial, gave way to a surge of fury. But her anger, though sharp, was only the beginning of a descent into madness. With a screech that pierced the calm of the forest, Surpanakha transformed before their eyes. Her shape shifted into that of a terrifying demoness, her monstrous features bared in full, her long sharp nails extending into claws. Her once seductive charm became twisted and dangerous as she lunged at Sita in a fit of jealousy and rage, seeking to tear apart the love and harmony that had held the family together. Sita, startled by the demoness's sudden attack, cried out in fear. Lakshmana, ever watchful and protective of his brother and sister-in-law, rushed to defend her. But it was Rama who, with an almost unbearable calmness, stepped forward. With a single motion, he drew his bow and aimed an arrow at Surpanakha. Her monstrous form seemed to freeze for a moment, but in that instant she lunged towards Sita once more. The battle that followed was swift and brutal. Rama's arrow flew with unerring precision, striking Surpanakha's face, severing her nose and ears in a single blow. The demoness let out a horrifying screech, her body writhing in pain and fury. The once beautiful creature now stood as a mutilated shadow of her former self, her face disfigured beyond recognition. Her vengeful, blood-curdling cries echoed through the forest, signaling the beginning of the chaos that was to follow. Surpanakha, humiliated and filled with rage, fled into the wilderness, her mind consumed with thoughts of vengeance. She had been defeated, but her wrath was far from extinguished. As she disappeared into the trees, she vowed that she would return to her brother Ravana with a tale of the insult she had suffered, one that would stir the fires of vengeance in her heart and in the heart of the demon king. The moment of peace that had settled over the forest now shattered like glass. Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana stood in the quiet aftermath of the battle, the air heavy with the realization that they had crossed a threshold. The demoness Surpanakha's attack was not merely an isolated incident. It was a harbinger of something far more dangerous, something that would soon pull them into a conflict that would stretch far beyond the peaceful confines of their exile. As they returned to their humble dwelling in the forest, the weight of the encounter hung heavily on their hearts. Rama, ever the vigilant protector, understood that Surpanakha's actions were none her own. They were part of a much larger plan, one that had been set in motion by Ravana, the demon king of Lanka. Surpanakha's mutilation was not the end of this story. It was the beginning of a much darker chapter in their lives, one that would force Rama to face the full extent of his destiny. News of the encounter spread quickly, reaching the ears of Ravana, who, furious at the humiliation of his sister, vowed to take revenge. His hatred for Rama, once a distant thought, now blazed with the fire of an unquenchable thirst for vengeance. The seeds of the conflict that would soon engulf Ayodhya and Lanka had been sown, and the fate of the world itself seemed to hinge on the outcome of the struggle between good and evil. Rama, unaware of the full extent of Ravana's wrath, continued his life in the forest with Sita and Lakshmana, but the shadows of what was to come began to creep closer. The forces of darkness had been awakened, and the world that Rama had once known, full of peace and virtue, was about to be torn asunder. The demoness's defeat had set the stage for a conflict that would change the course of history, setting the stage for the abduction of Sita, an event that would forever alter the course of Rama's journey and the fate of all those who stood with him. The forest, once a place of solitude and reflection, would soon become a battleground between the forces of light and darkness, and Rama's resolve would be tested in ways he could not yet imagine. The trials that lay ahead were only just beginning. The days in the forest grew quieter after the attack of Surpanaka, but an unsettling tension hung in the air. The once serene wilderness, where Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana had lived so peacefully, now seemed full of unseen dangers, as if the very fabric of their lives had shifted. Though they continued their simple existence, a shadow loomed over their hearts. They had faced the first challenge of the forest, Surpanaka, but a far greater threat was now taking shape, one that would test their very endurance and devotion. In the distant land of Lanka, Ravana, the demon king, seethed with rage over the mutilation of his sister. His heart burned with vengeance, and he could not bear the dishonor of Rama's victory over Surpanaka. The defeat was a wound to his pride, and he vowed to punish Rama by taking what he held most dear, his beloved wife, Sita. Ravana, cunning and malevolent, devised a plan to carry out his revenge. Knowing that Sita, though noble and virtuous, would never be swayed by force or threats, he decided to use deception as his weapon. Disguising himself as a humble hermit, he traveled to the forest where Rama and Sita lived, the perfect guise for a man who would appear harmless and pious. Meanwhile, in the heart of the forest, Sita had spent many days in quiet contemplation, unaware of the looming danger. Her life with Rama and Lakshmana had been one of simplicity, but also of love and devotion. Yet, she had begun to feel a longing for the outside world, for the beauty and the enchantment that the forest could not offer. The isolation, though peaceful, was beginning to take its toll on her heart. She missed the kingdom of Ayodhya, her family, and the life she had known. It was in this moment of vulnerability that Ravana, in disguise, approached her. His voice was soft and soothing, a perfect mimicry of the gentle tone of a hermit, one who had no interest in the world beyond his simple life of devotion. "O noble lady," he called out from behind the trees, his words carefully chosen, "I have seen a golden deer in the forest, its beauty unmatched by anything you have ever seen. It is said that the deer possesses great powers, and if you wish, I can help you capture it." Sita, intrigued by the idea of the golden deer, thought little of the hermit's presence. She had no reason to suspect that he was anything but what he seemed, a wandering sage who had heard the whispers of the golden deer's legend. The idea of a new adventure, something to break the monotony of the forest, stirred a longing within her heart. "I wish to see this golden deer," Sita said, her voice filled with curiosity. "I will send Rama and Lakshmana to help me catch it." Ravana, ever clever, anticipated this response. "It would be dangerous to send your husband and brother into the depths of the forest," he said, his voice low and persuasive. "But I have an idea. Send them away on a brief errand, and while they are gone, I will help you catch the deer. I promise that they will never know of the time lost, and your desire will be fulfilled." His words echoed in her mind, and for a brief moment, Sita hesitated. But the allure of the golden deer was too great, and Ravana's words felt warm and trustworthy. She did not see the darkness hidden beneath his smile. She agreed to the plan, and as Rama and Lakshmana ventured off to track a distant sound in the forest, Ravana made his move. In an instant, Ravana cast off his disguise and revealed his true form as the king of demons. He seized Sita, his strength overpowering her resistance. Before she could even cry out, he whisked her away, his mighty wings beating through the air as he carried her across the vast, treacherous expanse of the ocean to his island kingdom of Lanka. When Rama and Lakshmana returned to their dwelling, the familiar presence of Sita was gone. The forest seemed unnaturally still. It was as if the earth itself held its breath, waiting for the inevitable realization that would soon dawn upon them. They called her name, searching the area in vain. The sorrow in their hearts quickly gave way to the cold grip of terror, and as the hours stretched on, their fear grew unbearable. Rama, desperate to find his wife, began searching the forest with renewed vigor. But as the days passed, it became clear that she was not to be found. A growing sense of dread settled over him as he realized that Sita had been taken, and the peaceful exile that had once been his refuge had now turned into a nightmare. In the deepest recesses of his heart, a powerful surge of grief swelled, and with it, an unmistakable fire of resolve. The love he had for Sita, the woman who had stood by him through every trial, now fueled his every thought and action. He could not, would not allow this violation to stand. His heart, though broken, now burned with determination. His journey had now taken a turn. What had once been a path of self-reflection was now a path of action. Rama's sorrow, tempered by his undying devotion to Dharma, transformed into an unwavering resolve. He would stop at nothing to rescue Sita and restore peace to the world. This was no longer a simple test of patience. It was a battle for righteousness, a battle against the very forces of evil embodied by Ravana. But Rama knew that he could not face this battle alone. He would need allies, warriors whose strength and loyalty would match his own. His first step would be to seek out Sugriva, the divine monkey king who, like Rama, had been exiled from his kingdom. Sugriva's strength and the loyalty of his monkey army would be vital in the battle that lay ahead. And so, with a heart filled with both grief and determination, Rama set forth on a new path, one that would lead him to Lanka and the eventual showdown with Ravana. The stakes were higher now, for the safety of his wife and the fate of the kingdom itself rested on the shoulders of the prince who was destined to restore Dharma than the Thebans. Journey ahead would not be easy, but Rama's heart was steadfast, and he would stop at nothing to bring Sita back. His quest for justice, for love, and for the restoration of peace was about to begin in earnest. Rama's heart weighed heavy as he and Lakshmana traveled deeper into the untamed forests, each step taking them further from the life they had once known in Ayodhya. The vast wilderness seemed endless, its dense trees and thick underbrush offering no clues, no sign of the woman he loved more than life itself. Every day, they searched for any trace of Sita's presence, following the faintest footprints or sound. But the forest yielded nothing. Every corner of this seemingly endless wilderness had been turned over, yet the answers they sought remained elusive. The air, once full of the quiet peace of the forest, now felt oppressive and thick with an unspoken tension. The reality of the situation was clear. The forces of darkness, embodied by Ravana and his demon army, had taken Sita, and no matter how far Rama searched, he was still at the mercy of a greater power. His mind and heart were consumed by the vision of her, captured and taken to a distant land, alone and vulnerable. The forest, once a place of solace, now only served to deepen his grief. As they continued their journey, their search grew more desperate. Rama, normally composed and resolute, began to feel the weight of the enormity of his task. How could he, with his strength and dharma, face the challenge of rescuing Sita from the grasp of Ravana, the demon king of Lanka? How could he overcome the vast ocean that separated them? His mind raced with questions and doubts. Each moment that passed without finding a trace of her only deepened the ache in his heart. It was during one of these long days of searching, when their spirits were at their lowest, that the two brothers encountered a figure who would change the course of their journey forever. A figure, noble and mighty, emerged from the dense thicket of the forest, his presence both commanding and peaceful. The figure was none other than Hanuman, the divine monkey warrior, sent by the gods to aid Rama in his quest. Hanuman, who had heard of Rama's plight, approached the prince and his brother with respect and humility. His body, though small in comparison to the mighty strength he possessed, was infused with divine power, and his heart was filled with unwavering devotion to Rama. With a deep bow, Hanuman introduced himself. "I am Hanuman, servant of Lord Rama, and I have come to offer my assistance. I know of your sorrow and your quest. I, too, wish to help bring Sita back to you." Rama's heart surged with a renewed sense of hope at the sight of Hanuman's devotion and strength. He could see in Hanuman's eyes the same fire that burned within him, the fire of righteousness and duty. Rama knew that this monkey warrior, whose power was said to rival the greatest of gods, would be an invaluable ally in the battle ahead. "Your strength and loyalty are unmatched, Hanuman," Rama said, his voice filled with gratitude. "Together, we will find Sita and restore righteousness to the world. I cannot do this alone, but with your aid, I know we will succeed." Hanuman, whose heart swelled with pride at the prince's words, vowed to assist Rama with all the power he could muster. The two brothers and Hanuman began their search together, combing the forests and mountains, following every possible lead. Their journey took them through treacherous terrain and across deep ravines, but each challenge only solidified the bond between them. Despite their combined strength, however, the search for Sita seemed endless. As the days turned into weeks, Rama's resolve was tested like never before. The weight of his quest threatened to crush him, yet he pressed on. His love for Sita was a driving force, but so too was his unwavering commitment to dharma. He knew that to fail was not an option. The forces of darkness that threatened the world would not rest until they had torn everything asunder, and only he, the divine warrior, could stop them. It was in the midst of this despair that a breakthrough came. One day, as Hanuman ventured out to scout the surrounding mountains, he discovered a crucial clue: news of Sita's location. It was said that she had been seen in a distant kingdom, far across the ocean in Lanka. Her captor, Ravana, had taken her there, and she had been locked away in a golden palace, hidden from view. The discovery of Sita's whereabouts was a turning point. The vast, seemingly insurmountable obstacles before them now had a clear path forward. The ocean, once an impassable barrier, now became the challenge that must be faced in order to bring Sita home. Rama's heart, though still heavy with grief, now burned with a renewed sense of purpose. The time for searching had come to an end. Now, it was time for action. With this newfound knowledge, the trio's mission shifted. The first step was clear. They would gather an army to face Ravana's forces, and with Hanuman's aid, they would find a way to cross the ocean that separated them from Sita. Rama knew that this was the moment that would define his destiny, a moment that would shape the future of the world. His resolve, once shaken by doubt, now stood firm. The divine plan that had been set into motion long before his birth was unfolding, and he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The quest to rescue Sita had now become a war, not just a battle for one woman, but a battle for the future of the world, for the restoration of dharma and for the triumph of good over evil. With the discovery of Sita's location, Rama's journey had entered its most critical phase. His path now led to Lanka, and the battle for righteousness would soon begin in earnest. But before that battle could be fought, Rama knew that he must first gather the forces necessary to face Ravana's mighty kingdom. The foundation for his war had been laid, and the storm that would soon sweep across the world was inevitable. Rama and Lakshmana, with Hanuman now by their side, continued their journey through the dense forest, their search for Sita growing ever more desperate. Days passed, and the vast wilderness seemed endless, but they were determined to press on, their hearts heavy with the weight of the task ahead. The trio knew that finding Sita would not be enough. They would need to gather allies, to form a force powerful enough to face the demon king Ravana and his army. It was during this difficult time when the path forward seemed shrouded in uncertainty, that they came across Sugriva, the exiled monkey king. Hidden deep within the mountains, Sugriva had been living in exile, driven out of his kingdom by his powerful brother, Vali, who had seized the throne. The bond between Sugriva and his brother had once been strong, but betrayal and power struggles had torn them apart. Sugriva, now living in the shadows of his brother's tyranny, was in need of help that Rama and Lakshmana were willing to offer. When Rama and Lakshmana first encountered Sugriva, they saw not a mighty king but a warrior in despair. His once proud army had been scattered and his kingdom had been taken by force. But despite the grief and defeat that clouded Sugriva's eyes, there was a fire in him that would not be extinguished. His heart, though heavy with the pain of exile, still burned with the desire to reclaim his throne and restore his kingdom. Rama, recognizing the potential ally before him, spoke with great empathy. "We are on a quest to rescue my wife Sita, who has been taken by the demon king Ravana. We need your help, Sugriva. If you assist us in our search, I will aid you in reclaiming your kingdom from your brother, Vali." Sugriva, though initially wary of strangers in his time of need, sensed the sincerity in Rama's words and the divine strength that emanated from him. After a brief moment of hesitation, Sugriva agreed to ally himself with Rama, seeing this as a chance not only to restore his honor, but also to repay the kindness of the prince who had offered him an unexpected hand of friendship. But Sugriva's promise of aid came with a condition, one that would require Rama's strength and courage. In order for Sugriva to reclaim his throne and have the power to command an army of monkeys, he first had to defeat his brother, Vali, who was not only a mighty warrior but also an obstacle to Sugriva's future. Vali, with his immense strength, had pushed Sugriva out of his rightful place as king, and no matter how hard Sugriva had tried, he had been unable to reclaim the throne. Rama, undeterred by the challenge, agreed to the terms of the alliance. Together they would face Vali in battle and defeat him, restoring Sugriva to his throne. With that victory, Sugriva would be able to lead his army of monkeys, a powerful force that would be critical in their search for Sita. The day of the confrontation with Vali arrived, and Rama, Sugriva, and Dane, Lakshmana prepared for the battle that would shape their futures. The air was thick with tension as they approached the battleground. Sugriva, his heart both filled with fear and determination, stood at the ready. Vali, the mighty brother who had exiled him, awaited them, confident in his strength and superiority. The battle between the two brothers was fierce. Vali, a giant of strength and rage, wielded his power with ferocity, while Sugriva, driven by the promise of restoring his kingdom and reclaiming his honor, fought with all his might. Rama, standing from a distance, aimed his bow at the perfect moment, when Vali was distracted by Sugriva's onslaught. With a single precise shot, Rama's arrow struck Vali, mortally wounding the once mighty king. As Vali fell to the ground, defeated and dying, his last words were filled with bitterness and sorrow. He blamed his brother for the betrayal that had led to his downfall. But Sugriva, though sorrowful at the loss of family, stood firm in his resolve. He had fulfilled his duty, and with Vali's death, the throne of the monkey kingdom was now his once more. The moment was bittersweet, for Sugriva's victory came at the cost of fraternal ties. But with his brother's death, Sugriva was free to lead his people once again. He was crowned king of the Vanaras, the monkey kingdom, and his army, once scattered, rallied around him with newfound loyalty and devotion. Rama, having helped Sugriva restore his throne, now had an army at his disposal, a powerful force of monkeys who were bound to him by the promise of loyalty and the shared goal of rescuing Sita. Sugriva, in return for Rama's help, vowed to assist him in his quest with all the strength and resources at his command. With Sugriva's alliance secured and his army at their side, Rama, Lakshmana, and Hanuman prepared for the next step in their journey. The search for Sita was no longer a task that could be carried out by a small group of warriors. It had become a war. And in the upcoming battle against Ravana's demon forces, the Vanara army would prove crucial. The defeat of Vali and the successful formation of the monkey army marked a significant turning point in the story. Rama's resolve had been tested, and through his strength and devotion to Dharma, he had gained not just an ally, but an army. Sugriva's kingdom was restored, and the monkey warriors were now under Rama's command, ready to face the looming conflict. As Rama, Lakshmana, Sugriva, and the Vanaras prepared to march toward Lanka, their hearts were filled with purpose. The battle to rescue Sita was no longer a distant hope. It was an impending reality. The forces of good had gathered, and with the Vanaras by his side, Rama was ready to take on Ravana and bring Sita back. The stage was set for the final confrontation, and with each passing day, Rama's army grew stronger. The journey to Lanka was about to begin, and with it, the war between Chanda, good and evil, would reach its climactic battle. The air was thick with purpose and anticipation as Rama, Sugriva, and the mighty Vanara army gathered at the shores of the great ocean. The time for waiting had passed, and now the realization of their shared mission had come to fruition. The ocean stretched out before them, vast and unyielding, an impenetrable barrier that separated them from Ravana's kingdom of Lanka and the final confrontation that awaited. But Rama, ever resolute, knew that no obstacle was insurmountable when the forces of righteousness were united. For days, the army had worked tirelessly, under Rama's guidance and with Sugriva's command. The task before them was monumental, the construction of a bridge that would span the mighty ocean and carry them to Lanka. This bridge, known as Ramasetu, would not just be a physical structure. It would symbolize the unity of diverse forces, monkeys, bears, and men, coming together under Rama's leadership to fulfill their divine purpose. It was a monumental task, yet one that no one doubted could be accomplished. The Vanaras, gifted with strength and boundless energy, worked with unparalleled determination. Their hands, though large and rough, were skilled in labor, and their hearts were filled with an unshakable faith in Rama's cause. They carried stones, trees, and earth from the nearby forests, their mighty forms moving in rhythm, their work as seamless as the flow of the river. With every stone placed and every log set, the bridge took shape, one that would not only carry Rama's army to Ravana's fortress, but would stand as a testament to their unity, strength, and unwavering commitment to Dharma. Rama, standing at the head of the construction site, directed the efforts with a calm and steady hand. His mind was focused not just on the task at hand, but on the larger picture, the fate of Sita, the salvation of the world, and the triumph of good over evil. With each stone placed, each beam set, the vision of his victory grew clearer, and the path ahead seemed ever more tangible. The work was hard, but there was a sense of joy and purpose that filled the hearts of the builders. They were not just constructing a bridge, they were building a future where Dharma would reign supreme, and Ravana's tyranny would be brought to an end. Sugriva, though weary from the exertion, stood proudly alongside his newfound allies, his heart swelling with gratitude and loyalty. This bridge was not just a means to cross the ocean, it was the foundation upon which the hopes of an entire kingdom would rest. He had lost everything, his throne, his kingdom, his dignity. But with Rama's friendship and guidance, he had found everything he had lost and more. The army of Vanaras that had once been scattered now stood as one, united under a common cause. Even the gods, watching from the heavens, took note of the extraordinary feat unfolding below. They saw the bridge being built not just with stone and wood, but with the strength of love, loyalty, and unwavering faith. It was said that the divine powers themselves lent their blessings to the bridge's construction, for they knew that the victory of Rama over Ravana would change the course of history. Hanuman, ever the devoted servant, worked alongside his fellow Vanaras with tireless energy. His heart was filled with devotion to Rama, and every stone he placed seemed to carry with it a prayer for Sita's safe return. He moved with such swiftness and grace that at times it seemed as if the very winds were working alongside him. Hanuman's faith was unshakable, and with every step he took, The strength of his conviction helped fuel the work of the army. As the days wore on, the bridge slowly took shape, stretching out across the vast expanse of water, a magnificent structure of stone and timber. It was not just a physical bridge, it was the embodiment of hope, the manifestation of the combined will of every being who stood with Rama. The idea that this bridge would carry them into the heart of Ravana's domain filled them all with a quiet sense of triumph. Though the battle ahead would be fierce, they knew that they had already won a significant victory in their unity and resolve. The final stone was placed, and the bridge was complete. Rama, his heart filled with a deep, abiding pride in the efforts of his allies, stood before the massive structure. The sight before him was awe-inspiring, a bridge that spanned the ocean, connecting the world of Ayodhya with the dark land of Lanka. A bridge built by the hands of the humble and the mighty. A bridge that symbolized the triumph of good over the forces of darkness. With a final prayer to the gods, Rama looked out over the ocean, his heart brimming with determination. The moment had come. The bridge was complete, and the path to Lanka lay before him. The forces of good had gathered, and the time for battle was at hand. As Rama and his army prepared to cross the bridge, the weight of the journey ahead was not lost on him. This was not just the culmination of their quest. It was the beginning of the end. The forces of Ravana would meet them on the other side, and the battle that would determine the fate of the world was about to begin. But Rama's heart was steady, for he knew that no matter the challenges ahead, he was guided by Dharma and the divine will. The first step onto the bridge was taken, and the journey toward Lanka, toward the final confrontation with Ravana, began. With each step, the army of Vanaras, once scattered and broken, now moved as one. Their strength, their resolve, and their faith in Rama carried them forward toward the final battle that would determine the fate of Sita, of Ayodhya, and of the world. The bridge was not just a means to an end. It was a symbol of what they had already achieved and what they were about to accomplish. With the completion of the bridge, the world of Rama and his allies shifted. They had crossed from one world to the next, from a life of exile and preparation to a battle that would change the course of destiny forever. The path was clear, and the forces of good were ready to face Ravana and his dark kingdom. With the bridge complete, Rama's army set sail toward Lanka, where the final confrontation awaited. The battle that would shape the world had begun. The journey across the great ocean was long and perilous, but Rama and his allies had crossed the waters in unwavering determination. The sight of Lanka's towering walls now loomed in the distance, dark and imposing, a stark reminder of the forces that awaited them. The island, shrouded in mystery and treachery, was the stronghold of Ravana, the demon king whose cruelty and power had cast a shadow over the world. As the monkey army set foot upon the shores of Lanka, a palpable tension settled over them, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that the final confrontation was upon them. Rama stood at the forefront of his army, his eyes fixed on the distant city. The sight of Ravana's impenetrable fortress stirred a mix of emotions in him: pride for the strength of his army, sorrow for the trials Sita had endured, and an unyielding resolve to reclaim what was rightfully his. He had come this far, crossed oceans and fought battles, and now the moment of reckoning was at hand. The city of Lanka, surrounded by high fortified walls, stood as a symbol of Ravana's unchallenged reign. The grand towers rose like dark spires toward the sky, a testament to the king's arrogance and power. The gates, heavily guarded, were designed to keep out any invader, but Rama knew that nothing would stand in the way of his resolve. His army, though smaller in number than the demon hordes within, was united by a shared cause: righteousness, duty, and the desire to restore balance to the world. The Vanara warriors, with their strength and agility, moved quickly to establish their camp along the shore. Their loyalty to Rama was unwavering, and as they prepared for the upcoming battle, they drew strength from the belief that their cause was just. Every man, woman, and warrior who stood with Rama knew what was at stake: not just the life of one woman, but the fate of an entire world caught in the grip of darkness. The forces of Ravana, no matter how powerful, would not stand a chance against the united strength of those who fought for Dharma. Hanuman, ever the faithful companion, stood by Rama's side, his heart burning with devotion and his eyes focused on the task ahead. He had carried Rama's message across the ocean, had faced trials that would have broken any other, and now his mission had led him to this, facing the mighty Ravana in his own stronghold. Hanuman's faith in Rama was unshakable, and his determination to see Sita return to her rightful place was matched only by Rama's own. Lakshmana, loyal as ever, stood ready beside his brother, his mind sharp and focused. The love and bond between the two brothers had been tested in countless ways, but this final battle would be the ultimate test of their strength and resolve. Lakshmana knew that his role was clear. He would fight beside Rama until the very end, no matter the cost. The army gathered, and the mood shifted from one of quiet anticipation to the sharp focus of warriors, preparing for battle. The ground beneath their feet seemed to tremble with the weight of the war to come. Every warrior understood that the battle for Sita's freedom was not just a battle for her. It was a battle for the survival of Dharma itself, for the triumph of good over evil. Rama, standing tall and unwavering, looked over his army, his heart heavy with the burden of leadership. His mind, though filled with sorrow for the loss of his beloved wife, remained focused on the task ahead. He knew that the forces of Ravana would not yield easily. The demon king, though cruel and vile, was no fool. He had prepared for this moment just as Rama had. The battle ahead would test every ounce of strength and strategy. The divine warriors in Rama's army prepared their weapons, mighty bows, sharp arrows, and the divine weapons bestowed upon them by the gods. Each warrior was ready to fight with the full force of righteousness, for the fate of the world rested in their hands. The battle for Sita's freedom would not be fought with strength alone, but with the power of Dharma, the guiding light of truth and justice. As the army made final preparations, the sound of conch shells echoed across the shores, signaling the start of the great war. Rama's heart pounded in his chest, but his resolve remained unbroken. This was the moment that had been set in motion long before his birth, and now the time had come to fulfill his destiny. With one last glance at the city of Lanka, Rama turned to his army and spoke words that would carry them into the heart of the battle. Brothers and sisters, this battle is not just for one woman. It is for the righteousness of the world, for the restoration of peace and justice. We are united by a common cause, and we will not falter. Ravana may hold Sita captive, but he will never hold the world in his grasp. We will fight for Dharma and we will win. With Rama's words ringing in their hearts, the army of Vanaras surged forward, their spirits lifted by the strength of their leader. The gates of Lanka stood before them, but nothing could hold them back now. The battle for Sita's freedom had begun. The journey that had begun in the forests, with the promise made between brothers and allies, was now at its climax. Rama, Sugriva, Hanuman, and the entire army moved forward, their hearts filled with determination and their weapons ready for the fight ahead. Ravana's kingdom would soon know the might of the forces of Dharma, and the final confrontation with the demon king was imminent. As they marched toward the gates of Lanka, the battle that would decide the fate of Sita and the kingdom began to take shape. With every step, the forces of good rallied together, prepared to face the darkness that lay within the walls of Ravana's city. The coming conflict would be the moment that would change the world forever. The sun rose high over the battlefield, casting a fierce light on the sprawling war that had begun. The ground trembled beneath the weight of the two mighty forces, as Rama's army of Vanaras and divine warriors collided with the demon legions of Ravana. The clash of weapons rang out in the air, accompanied by the screams of battle and the thunderous roar of the forces colliding. The earth itself seemed to echo with the intensity of the conflict, as magic and might collided in a desperate struggle for control. Rama, mounted on his chariot, surveyed the battlefield with a sharp eye. His heart was resolute, his mind clear, as he focused on the task ahead. This was no mere battle. It was a war for the soul of the world, a contest between the forces of righteousness and darkness. At his side stood Lakshmana, his brother and steadfast companion, both armed and ready for the fight that would determine the fate of Sita and the kingdom of Lanka. The Vanaras, with their incredible strength and agility, fought with the ferocity of warriors who had nothing left to lose. They battled fiercely, tearing through Ravana's demons with an unyielding force. The ground was soon littered with fallen warriors, both Vanara and demon alike. But the tide of battle shifted with every passing moment, and Rama knew that the true challenge lay ahead, his confrontation with Ravana's most powerful generals. The first of these formidable foes to challenge Rama was Kumbhakarna, Ravana's towering monstrous brother. Kumbhakarna, a giant of a demon with the strength to rival even the gods, was a terror on the battlefield. His massive form seemed to block out the sun as he charged toward Rama with a roar that sent tremors through the earth. The force of his approach was like a tidal wave crashing into the sea, and his enormous mace swung through the air with a force that could obliterate anything in its path. Rama's eyes narrowed as he prepared for the battle ahead. Kumbhakarna's strength was unmatched, and his size alone made him a terrifying adversary. But Rama was no ordinary warrior. He was a divine incarnation, empowered by the gods themselves, and his heart was guided by righteousness. He had faced countless trials, and he would face this one with the same unwavering commitment to dharma. The battle between Rama and Kumbhakarna was a clash of titanic forces. Kumbhakarna swung his massive mace with the fury of a storm, his every strike shaking the very foundations of the earth. Rama, agile and focused, dodged the blows with skill and precision, his bow at the ready. He released arrows, each one imbued with divine energy, aiming for the giant demon's heart. Kumbhakarna, though massive and powerful, was slow to react, and Rama's arrows found their mark, striking Kumbhakarna with devastating force. Yet, the demon's immense strength allowed him to shake off the blows, and he fought back with a brutal intensity, his every movement sending shockwaves through the battlefield. Lakshmana, ever the loyal brother, fought valiantly by Rama's side, aiding him in the battle against Kumbhakarna. With each strike, they wore the demon down, their combined might a force of divine justice. But Kumbhakarna was relentless, his rage driving him forward like an unstoppable force. It took all of Rama's strength, all of his divine powers, to finally bring the giant demon to his knees. With one final powerful shot from his bow, Rama pierced Kumbhakarna's heart, bringing an end to his reign of terror. The fall of Kumbhakarna sent shockwaves through the demon army, but Ravana's forces were far from defeated. Other demons, no less fearsome than Kumbhakarna, continued to press the attack. The battlefield was a swirling vortex of chaos. Divine warriors, Vanaras, and demons locked in combat as the fate of Sita hung in the balance. Rama fought on with unmatched determination, his divine power surging through him with each blow. He faced demons, Rakshasas, and other terrifying creatures, each one more powerful than the last. But with every battle he fought, he grew stronger, his will and resolve unwavering. His arrows, blessed by the gods, tore through the demon ranks, and his strength seemed to grow with each victory. But even as the battle raged around him, Rama knew that the true confrontation had yet to come. Ravana, the demon king, had watched from the safety of his citadel, his heart filled with fury at the defeat of his brother. But Ravana, unlike his generals, had a power that transcended mere physical might. He was a king of dark sorcery, his strength bolstered by dark magic, and the boons he had received from the gods. The time for Rama to face Ravana was drawing near, and the final showdown was inevitable. As Rama continued to fight, his thoughts were focused on one singular goal: to defeat Ravana and restore dharma to the world. The stakes of the battle were clear. This was not just a fight for Sita's freedom, but for the very balance of the world itself. Ravana's evil had spread far beyond the borders of Lanka, and if he were allowed to triumph, it would mean the triumph of darkness over light, chaos over order. With Kumbhakarna's defeat, the battlefield shifted. The demon forces, though formidable, began to falter, their morale shattered by the fall of their greatest warrior. But even as the Vanaras pressed the attack, Rama knew that the true test was yet to come. Ravana's dark powers would soon be unleashed, and the battle for Sita's freedom would move into its final, most crucial stage. As the battle continued, the air grew thick with the promise of the ultimate confrontation. Rama's determination burned brighter than ever, and the forces of good rallied around him, prepared to face the darkness that Ravana represented. The battle between Rama and Ravana was inevitable, and it was one that would decide not only the fate of Sita but the fate of the entire world. The divine powers that guided Rama's every step would soon be tested in a way they had never been before, as the final confrontation approached. The battlefield had fallen into an eerie silence, the echoes of war fading as both Rama and Ravana stood, locked in the eye of the storm. The clash of their armies had subsided, but the battle between the two great warriors was far from over. As Ravana, with his golden crown glistening under the sun, and Rama, radiant with divine strength, faced each other on the field, it was clear that this duel would decide the fate of the world. Ravana, the demon king whose evil had spread like a dark shadow over the earth, stood tall and mighty. His eyes, burning with fury and pride, met Rama's gaze, and for a moment it seemed as though the entire world held its breath. Ravana had prepared for this moment for years. His might was legendary, and his 10 heads, each one representing a different facet of his dark power, loomed over the battlefield. He had been blessed by the gods with immense strength, and his resilience was unmatched. But standing across from him was Rama, an incarnation of Vishnu, born to restore balance to the world. His devotion to dharma, his unwavering commitment to justice, and his divine weapons gave him an edge that Ravana could never truly overcome. Rama's heart was steadfast, his focus unwavering. Every strike he delivered, every motion he made, was guided by the principles of righteousness. The clash began with a thunderous roar as Ravana charged forward, his massive sword raised high, aiming to strike Rama down in one fell swoop. Rama, with the agility and precision of a divine warrior, sidestepped the blow and launched an arrow in return. The arrow, imbued with divine energy, struck Ravana's armor, but the demon king merely smirked. The armor, blessed by the gods, absorbed the blow, and Ravana's resilience became all the more apparent. The battle between the two warriors raged on, each displaying extraordinary skill and strength. Ravana's blows were powerful, each strike capable of bringing down entire trees with a single swing. His 10 heads, each with its own voice, screamed commands, and his 10 arms wielded an array of weapons, from swords to axes, each one more deadly than the last. He fought with the fury of a demon king whose pride had been wounded, each blow delivered with the intent to crush his opponent. Rama, however, was unshaken. He moved with the grace of a god, his strikes sharp and precise, each arrow fired from his bow carrying the weight of divine justice. His weapon of choice, the mighty bow, seemed to hum with power as Rama unleashed a flurry of arrows, each one aimed with unerring precision. The arrows cut through the air like lightning, striking Ravana's defenses, but the demon king's resilience held firm. For days the duel continued, neither warrior yielding to the other. The ground beneath their feet was scarred, the air thick with the sound of clashing steel and the power of divine forces colliding. Rama's heart remained steady, his resolve clear. This battle was not just for his own victory, but for the restoration of dharma. Each strike he made, each arrow he released, was a step closer to fulfilling his destiny, to ending Ravana's reign of terror and rescuing Sita. Ravana, though mighty, found himself increasingly challenged. The strength of his 10 heads, each one representing a different aspect of his dark power, began to wane. The more Rama's arrows struck him, the more Ravana felt the weight of his actions pressing down on him. His divine armor, though strong, was no match for Rama's unwavering devotion to dharma. Ravana's arrogance, once a source of his invincibility, now began to falter, replaced by a growing sense of doubt. But the demon king was not one to give up easily. His fury only intensified as he summoned his darkest powers, calling upon the ancient magics that had made him nearly invincible. Ravana's body swelled with dark energy, his 10 heads screaming with rage as he unleashed a final, devastating attack. A torrent of magical energy, fueled by his pride and desperation, surged through him, and with a roar, he hurled himself toward Rama. In that moment, Rama's heart remained calm. He knew that this final assault was the last gasp of a defeated king. Ravana's fury, though powerful, was fueled by darkness, while Rama's strength was guided by the divine. With a steady hand, Rama drew his bow once more, his focus sharper than ever. He called upon his divine powers, and the bow hummed with energy as he released his final arrow. The arrow, imbued with the essence of Vishnu himself, flew through the air, its tip glowing with divine radiance. It struck Ravana's heart, piercing through his magical armor and into his very soul. For a moment, there was silence, a pause in the battle, as if the world itself was holding its breath. And then, with the final earth-shattering roar, Ravana fell to the ground, his body crumpling beneath the weight of his own arrogance. Rama stood tall, his chest heaving with the weight of the battle he had just won. His heart, though filled with relief, remained focused on the task at hand. The victory over Ravana was not just his. It was the victory of dharma, of righteousness over evil, of good over darkness. The battle was over, but the journey was far from complete. As the dust settled on the battlefield and Ravana's forces scattered, Rama's thoughts turned to Sita. The time had come to bring her home, to restore her to her rightful place. The ultimate test of his devotion to dharma, to love, and to duty was nearly over, but the journey to rescue Sita, to reunite with her, was still ahead. The tension on the battlefield had reached its peak, and now, with Ravana's defeat, the path to victory had been cleared. But even as the final moments of the duel unfolded, Rama knew that his greatest challenge was still to come, the reunion with Sita and the restoration of peace to the world. With Ravana's fall, the ultimate end, confrontation was over, but the heart of the battle, the struggle between good and evil, would live on in the hearts of those who fought for what was right. The battlefield lay in a stunned silence after Ravana's fall. His mighty form crumpled beneath the weight of the divine arrow that had pierced his heart. The once impregnable demon king, whose reign of terror had cast a shadow over the earth, now lay defeated. The forces of evil, which had for so long threatened the balance of the world, were now vanquished. The winds that had once carried the echoes of battle now carried the quiet whispers of victory. Victory that came at a great cost. Rama, standing over Ravana's fallen body, was filled with a sense of triumph, but it was tempered by an undeniable sorrow. His mission, the reason for his entire journey, was finally complete. The dark forces had been overcome, and the world had been restored to balance. But as Rama gazed at the demon king's lifeless form, his mind was drawn back to the path that had led him here. His exile, his trials, the pain of being separated from Sita, and the unimaginable suffering she had endured during her captivity. The world was now free of Ravana's tyranny, but in this victory, Rama could not help but feel the weight of the sacrifices made, the losses sustained. The emotional cost of the battle, though not easily visible, was there, hanging over him like a shadow. The victory felt hollow in comparison to the life he had lost in the process, the love of his wife, the peace of his kingdom, and the countless moments of joy that had been stolen from him. Rama turned his gaze from Ravana's fallen body and toward the heavens. He had faced the ultimate test of dharma, and though his victory was just, his heart could not ignore the path it had taken to get here. The killing of Ravana, a king and a powerful demon, was a necessity in the greater balance of the world, but it did not erase the toll it had taken on him. As he stood there, in the midst of the aftermath of battle, his thoughts inevitably turned to Sita. The time had come to bring her back, to rescue her from the clutches of Ravana, but he could not ignore the emotional turmoil that lay ahead. The forces of darkness had been defeated, but Sita's suffering had left deep scars. How would she receive him after all that had transpired? Would she ever forgive him for the trials she had endured during her captivity? And how could he, a man bound by dharma, reconcile the love he had for her with the actions he had taken to free her. But for now, his thoughts had no room for hesitation. Sita was still waiting, still in the grasp of the sorrow and fear Ravana had inflicted upon her. Rama's resolve, though shaken, remained firm. He had come to this point for her, and now he would do everything in his power to restore the peace they had once known. With Ravana's fall, the path towards Sita's freedom had been cleared. The city of Lanka, once a stronghold of evil, lay in ruins. The demon king's forces scattered, his reign of terror shattered in an instant. And yet, despite the forces of the darkness being vanquished, the future was far from certain. Rama's mind turned once more to the future of his kingdom. Ravana's defeat was not merely a battle won. It was a new chapter that would change the course of history. The power he had wielded in Lanka would not simply fade with his death. What of his army? What of the demons that remained, scattered in the wake of Ravana's fall? Rama knew that the world, though free from Ravana's rule, still faced challenges ahead. The kingdom of Ayodhya, too, would face its own trials in the wake of the battle. But for now, the most pressing matter remained the rescue of Sita. His heart, though heavy with the weight of his actions, could not bear the thought of his beloved being kept in the darkness of Ravana's palace for one moment longer. He called for his allies, the Vanaras, to prepare for the final leg of the journey that would reunite him with Sita and bring her back to the light. With the forces of evil vanquished and the path now open, Rama made his way toward Ravana's golden palace, where Sita waited. The battle for Dharma had been won, but the final test of love, trust, and devotion remained. As Rama approached the palace gates, the thought of Sita filled his heart. He knew that this moment, the moment of reunion, would be a turning point. The world may have been restored to balance, but the personal trials of Rama and Sita had yet to be fully faced. And so, as the dust of battle began to settle and the forces of Ravana scattered into the wind, Rama moved forward with a heart heavy with duty, love, and the knowledge that the trials of the past would shape their future. The kingdom of Ayodhya, his home, lay in the distance, waiting for his return. But first, he had to bring Sita back, and the road to her freedom would be the final test of their love. With Ravana defeated, the story shifted once more, away from the chaos of battle and into the complex emotions that would define Rama's reign and the future of his kingdom. What would it mean to return home? What would it mean to restore Sita to her rightful place? These were questions that would soon demand answers. The moment that Rama and Sita had longed for had finally arrived. The journey to rescue her had been fraught with hardship, and the battle to defeat Ravana had been won. Yet, even in this moment of triumph, the weight of the world seemed to rest on Rama's shoulders as he looked upon his wife, freed from the grasp of the demon king. The love they shared, the bond that had carried them through the darkest of times, was now to be tested in a way neither of them could have anticipated. The people of Ayodhya, though overjoyed at the return of their prince and his wife, were not as quick to accept the reunion without doubt. The trial of Sita's captivity, the time spent in Ravana's palace, had left scars not just on her, but on the kingdom as well. The whispers among the citizens of Ayodhya began to grow louder. There were those who questioned whether Sita had remained pure during her time in Ravana's captivity. Though Sita's virtue had never faltered in her heart, the doubts of the people could not be so easily silenced. Rama, though deeply in love with his wife and longing to restore her to her rightful place by his side, knew the expectations of his kingdom could not be ignored. He was a king, not just a husband, and his duty to uphold dharma, the moral and divine order, demanded that he make a decision that would settle the hearts of his people. As much as it pained him to even consider the idea, Rama knew that he had no choice but to ask Sita to undergo a trial by fire. The decision weighed heavily on his heart, for the thought of doubting his wife, of asking her to prove her purity, was anathema to the love and respect he held for her. But duty, as it always had, called louder than his personal desires. In front of his kingdom, in the presence of the people, Rama spoke the words that would forever change the course of their relationship. "Sita," he began, his voice heavy with the burden of his words. The people of Ayodhya are in doubt. I too must bear their burden, for I am their king. To restore peace and honor to our kingdom, I must ask you to undergo the trial by fire. It is the only way to prove your purity in the eyes of the people. Sita, though devastated by the necessity of the trial, did not falter. Her love for Rama, her devotion to him, and her unwavering faith in Dharma remained intact. She had been tested by Ravana's captivity, but now she would be tested by the very man she loved, the man she had always trusted. With quiet strength, she turned to him and spoke. My lord, I understand the weight of your duty. I will undergo the trial by fire. I have always believed in the righteousness of your heart, and I trust that the gods will guide me through this trial. If my purity is in question, I will prove it with my faith in Dharma, in you, and in the gods. Her words, though spoken with grace, carried the weight of her suffering. Rama's heart broke at the thought of putting her through such an ordeal, but he could not deny the path before him. This trial, though a painful one, was the only way to restore peace to his kingdom and to bring Sita back into the full light of honor. The trial by fire was prepared. A great pyre was built, the flames licking the sky as the fire blazed high. The people of Ayodhya gathered around, their eyes filled with a mixture of anticipation and fear. Sita, ever composed, stood before the pyre, her heart unwavering. She looked to Rama, her eyes filled with both love and sorrow, knowing that this trial, though cruel, was the only way to prove her purity. With a deep breath, she stepped toward the flames, her faith and devotion to both Rama and Dharma carrying her forward. As Sita entered the flames, the crowd held their breath, the heat of the fire rising higher with every passing moment. Rama, though resolute in his decision, could not suppress the anguish in his heart. His eyes never left the fire, his soul consumed with a fear he had not known before. He had trusted the process, but the sight of his beloved wife stepping into the flames filled him with dread. For a moment, it seemed as though time had stopped. The fire crackled and roared, threatening to consume everything in its path. But then, as the smoke cleared and the flames began to die down, something miraculous occurred. Sita emerged from the fire, unharmed, her body unscathed, her purity proven not just to the people, but to the heavens themselves. The crowd erupted in awe, their doubts now silenced. Sita, having endured the trial by fire, stood before them, her grace and virtue shining brighter than the flames that had once threatened to engulf her. Rama, his heart overflowing with relief and reverence, gazed upon her with tears in his eyes. The gods had granted her purity, and the trial had not only proven her chastity, but had also reaffirmed her strength, her devotion, and her unwavering faith. Sita, now restored in the eyes of the kingdom, turned to Rama, her eyes filled with love and understanding. "My lord," she said, her voice soft but steady, "I have walked through the fire and emerged unscathed, not because of my own strength, but because of the love we share and the righteousness of Dharma. I am yours, and I have always been." Rama, though relieved, now saw the deeper truth. This trial, though painful, had only strengthened their bond. It had tested their love, their trust, and their devotion to Dharma. And though the trial was over, the journey ahead would not be without its challenges. The kingdom had been restored, but their personal trials had only just begun. With Sita by his side, purified by fire and strengthened in love, Rama's heart knew peace. But the complexities of their future awaited. The kingdom of Ayodhya, their home, was still to be reclaimed, and their reign, though rooted in righteousness, would not be without its trials. Yet, in this moment, as they stood united, they knew that no force in the world could break the bond they shared. With the trial behind them, Rama and Sita's path forward was clear, but their journey together and the challenges that awaited them were just beginning. The journey back to Ayodhya was filled with the promise of peace, but also with the weight of all that had been endured. As Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana made their way toward the kingdom, The distant sight of the city gates filled their hearts with both joy and reflection. The long exile, the battle for Sita's freedom, the trials they had faced, it was all finally behind them. The promise of a return to a kingdom at peace with itself seemed almost within reach. Yet the shadows of their journey still lingered in their hearts, and their minds remained occupied by the challenges ahead. As they entered the city, the streets erupted in celebration. The people, who had long awaited the return of their beloved prince and princess, filled the streets with flowers, music, and the sounds of joyous chanting. The air was thick with the aroma of incense and the sounds of drums and cymbals, as the citizens of Ayodhya, from the highest noble to the humblest commoner, gathered to celebrate their return. The joy was palpable. Rama had returned as a victorious hero, and his people cheered not just for his triumph over Ravana, but for the restoration of peace and order to the kingdom. Rama, his heart swelling with pride and gratitude, stood tall at the head of the procession, his eyes searching the faces of the people who had so faithfully awaited his return. His chest, though filled with love for the kingdom and its people, also bore the weight of the responsibility that now awaited him. He had fought battles, endured exile, and faced countless trials. But now, as the sun set on the horizon, he knew that his greatest challenge had yet to come, ruling the kingdom that had been torn apart in his absence. Sita, walking gracefully beside him, was greeted with waves of adoration and love. The people of Ayodhya, who had once mourned her absence, now rejoiced at her return. She had been through so much: captivity, trials by fire, and the pain of separation from her beloved husband. But she stood strong, her grace and dignity shining brighter than ever, as she was reunited with the people she had once ruled alongside Rama. Her heart swelled with pride, not just for her own return, but for the knowledge that their journey, though difficult, had led them to this moment. Lakshmana, always by his brother's side, walked with them, his heart full of relief. Though he too had faced the trials of exile, the anguish of being separated from the comforts of the palace, his loyalty to Rama and Sita had never wavered. As they approached the royal palace, Lakshmana's thoughts, though filled with joy at their return, turned to the responsibilities that would soon befall them. Ayodhya had been waiting for its king, but what kind of ruler would Rama be after everything they had endured? And what of Sita? How would she navigate the complexities of a world that had changed so much during their absence? As the procession reached the royal palace, the streets were filled with cheers. But inside the palace, Rama could already feel the weight of the crown pressing down on him. His kingdom, his people, his family, they had all been through so much. The kingdom had been left in a delicate balance, and now it was time to restore it to its former glory. But as he sat upon his throne and looked out at the faces of his people, a deep sense of unease began to settle over him. He had been a warrior, a hero, a husband, and a king. But now, as he prepared to rule, he realized that the path ahead was more complex than he had ever imagined. The scars of the journey, both seen and unseen, would not disappear overnight. The victory over Ravana had been hard won, but there were still remnants of the past, of doubt, of suffering, and of loss that would not fade so easily. His kingdom was restored, but the hearts of his people needed healing. The wounds of war and exile were still fresh, and Rama knew that ruling a kingdom was not just about maintaining power. It was about restoring peace, rebuilding trust, and ensuring that justice and fairness were upheld. As the days passed, Rama immersed himself in the duties of kingship. He met with his ministers, addressed the concerns of his people, and began the slow process of rebuilding the kingdom from the wounds left by Ravana's forces. But despite the outward appearance of peace, Rama's mind was preoccupied with personal and moral dilemmas that could not be so easily resolved. His relationship with Sita, too, was not as simple as it appeared. The trial she had endured, the doubts about her purity that had lingered, the emotional toll it had taken on both of them, all of it weighed heavily on Rama's heart. He loved Sita with every part of his being, but the path he had chosen, the duty he had upheld, had forced them both to endure unimaginable pain. He knew that despite her purity, despite the fire that had proven her innocence, the scars of doubt still lingered, both in the eyes of his people and in his own heart. Could he, as a ruler, reconcile his love for her with the responsibilities he bore? And could she, after all that had happened, truly find peace in a kingdom that had been so divided by their trials? Sita, too, grappled with her own challenges. She had been proven pure, her devotion to Rama unwavering, yet the weight of public scrutiny still lingered. She had endured her trials with grace, but now, as they returned to Ayodhya, she faced the uncertain future of living in a kingdom that would never fully forget the challenges she had faced. She knew that her bond with Rama, though stronger than ever, would face trials in this new chapter of their lives, and she was unsure of how to navigate the complexities of the royal court. As the days in Ayodhya passed, the joy of their return slowly gave way to the realization that the kingdom, though restored to peace, was not the same as it had been before. Rama and Sita, though united, now stood at the threshold of a new era, one filled with both promise and uncertainty. The challenges of ruling, of healing, of rebuilding trust were just beginning. And as the kingdom settled into peace, the focus of the story shifted once more, from the triumph of battle to the quiet complexities of ruling, of love, and of the personal trials that awaited them both. The return to Ayodhya, once envisioned as a moment of joyous reunion, now revealed itself as the beginning of a new chapter for Rama, a chapter that was far more complex than he had imagined. As he sat upon his throne, his eyes scanned the kingdom that had long awaited his return. The streets were filled with prosperity, the markets bustling, and the temples ringing with the prayers of grateful citizens. Yet despite the outward signs of peace, the weight of leadership pressed down on him, more burdensome than any sword or bow he had ever wielded. Rama, by nature a warrior and a son of Dharma, had never expected kingship to be easy. He had fought for justice, for his kingdom, and for Sita's freedom. But now, sitting at the center of power, he felt the crushing weight of the crown, a weight that no battle had prepared him for. His decisions were no longer about matters of war or personal devotion. They were about the lives of countless people, the stability of an entire kingdom, and the preservation of righteousness in a world that was far from perfect. The palace halls were filled with whispers, requests, petitions, grievances, and advice from ministers, courtiers, and citizens alike. Rama's presence was sought by all, for every issue, large or small, was now his to resolve. From matters of taxation to disputes between nobles, from ensuring food for the kingdom to safeguarding its borders, every aspect of the kingdom's well-being fell upon his shoulders. The questions, the doubts, and the expectations mounted day by day, and with every decision he made, Rama felt the weight of the responsibility deepen. Though he was the embodiment of Dharma, Rama found himself torn between the conflicting demands of his duty as king and the moral complexities of each situation. He had always known right from wrong, but kingship was not merely a matter of justice. It was a balancing act, where the ideal solution often clashed with the reality of politics. Every decision required compromise, and every compromise seemed to pull him further from the pure ideals of Dharma he had once held so firmly. What was the right course of action when the path ahead was not so clear? And how could he balance the needs of his kingdom with the demands of his own heart? Rama, in his wisdom, knew that a king must be both a ruler and a servant of his people. He could not simply rule by divine right. He had to be a shepherd to his flock, guiding them with kindness, justice, and understanding. Yet even with this knowledge, he found himself struggling. The people of Ayodhya had once hailed him as their hero, their prince, the one who had rescued them from the darkness. But now they looked to him, not just for guidance but for answers, to the endless questions and problems that came with governance. It was not just the external demands that weighed on him, but the internal conflict that simmered beneath the surface. He had already sacrificed so much for the good of his kingdom, for the restoration of Dharma. He had exiled himself to the forest, fought in a war, and endured the pain of being separated from Sita. But now, as a king, his heart was torn between his love for his wife and his duty to rule. The responsibilities of leadership were endless, and even as he honored his duty to his people, he could not help but feel the quiet pull of his heart towards Sita. Their love had been tested in ways few could understand, and now, as he sat in judgment of others, he wondered if he could ever truly reconcile the demands of kingship with the demands of love and family. As the days passed, Rama's peace became more elusive. His every decision was scrutinized by those around him, and he began to feel the ever-present pressure of expectations. Expectations from his people, his ministers, and even from himself. There were moments when he longed for the simplicity of his life in the forest, when he and Sita had lived in harmony with nature, unburdened by the complexities of rule. But those days were gone, and the world of kingship had drawn him into its grip. Sita, ever by his side, too sensed the strain that was beginning to erode the tranquility of their life. She saw the heavy weight in his eyes, the fatigue that began to seep into his once strong frame. He had always been a man of action, a warrior whose strength was matched only by his resolve. But now, he was a king, one who had to think, to strategize, and to act in ways that were often painful and morally ambiguous. She knew, as did he, that the burden of kingship was not just a crown, it was a deep, soul-shaking responsibility that would never release him from its grasp. Lakshmana, always the faithful brother, noticed the subtle change in Rama. Though he too shared in the responsibilities of ruling, he could not help but feel the heavy toll it had taken on his elder brother. The once joyous glint in Rama's eyes had dimmed, replaced by the seriousness of a man weighed down by the enormity of his duty. Lakshmana, though loyal, found himself grappling with his own feelings of helplessness. He had always been at Rama's side, but now he wondered if there was anything he could do to ease his brother's burden. The palace, once filled with the sound of laughter and light, had now become a place of endless decision-making, and the joy of their victory seemed to be slowly slipping away. As Rama walked the halls of the palace, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts and doubts, he realized that this was the true test of kingship. Not the battles won or the wars fought, but the internal struggles of ruling a kingdom with integrity and wisdom. The choices he made would shape not only his legacy, but the future of his people. And in this quiet storm of decisions, he knew that his next phase of the journey, one that would test his heart, his mind, and his spirit, was just beginning. The peace of Ayodhya, though restored, had only highlighted the questions, personal and moral dilemmas that now surrounded him. The weight of leadership and duty had begun to erode Rama's peace, pulling him further from the harmony he had once known. His heart was torn between the love for his people and his devotion to dharma, and the quiet conflict within him began to grow. As the kingdom settled into its newfound peace, Rama's journey took on a new direction, a journey that would force him to confront the very essence of leadership, love, and sacrifice. The challenges of his reign had only just begun. The kingdom of Ayodhya had settled into a fragile peace, but beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to form. Though Ravana had been defeated and Sita had returned to Rama's side, the doubts of the people lingered like a shadow over their home. Whispers, once quiet, had now grown louder, and rumors of Sita's chastity, whispers that had begun during her captivity in Lanka, spread throughout the kingdom. The people, though loyal to their prince, could not shake the questions that plagued their hearts. The pain of Sita's time in Ravana's palace, though proven in the trial by fire, still gnawed at their collective consciousness. Rama, ever the ruler bound by dharma, had already faced trials of love and loyalty, but now he was confronted with a painful reality. His duty to his people, the duty to protect the honor of his kingdom, was at odds with his love for his wife. The whispers of doubt had become an insurmountable weight upon his heart. He could no longer ignore the expectations of his people, the demands of his throne, and the moral obligations of his position. The delicate balance between duty and personal love, between the responsibilities of a king and the desires of a husband, was now stretched to its breaking point. Rama, though devastated by the prospect of losing Sita again, knew in his heart that as king, he must serve the greater good. He had to embody dharma, not just as a warrior, but as a leader, a symbol of righteousness for his kingdom. The welfare of Ayodhya, the stability of the kingdom, depended on his ability to make difficult decisions, even when they tore at his soul. With great sorrow, Rama called Sita to his side. His heart was heavy, and his voice faltered as he spoke the words that would alter the course of their lives. "Sita," he began, his eyes clouded with anguish, "though I know you have suffered and endured much, the people of Ayodhya still speak of doubts that I cannot ignore. They question your purity, and as king, I must protect the honor of the throne. I must send you into exile, for the peace of the kingdom requires it." Sita, her eyes wide with disbelief, could hardly comprehend what Rama was asking of her. Her heart, so long burdened by the pain of separation, now broke anew. To be exiled from her husband's side, after all that she had endured, was a fate worse than death. Yet, in her quiet strength, she knew that Rama's decision, though painful, was rooted in duty. She had always known that his role as king came first, that he could not rule without the approval of his people. With a quiet, sorrowful acceptance, Sita spoke. "My lord, I understand the weight of your position. I have always trusted your judgment, and though this trial is unbearable, I know that you must uphold the law. I will go into exile, for the peace of Ayodhya must come first. My love for you has never wavered, and I know that duty must always come before personal desires." Her words, though filled with grace, were heavy with the sorrow of a woman who had loved and lost, who had endured unspeakable pain only to be asked to leave the man she had spent her life devoted to. Rama's heart, already broken, shattered further at her willingness to sacrifice for the kingdom. His love for Sita had never been in question, yet his duty as king had forced him into an impossible decision. The decision was made, but the emotional toll it took on both of them was immense. Sita, now pregnant with their children, left the palace with a heavy heart, knowing she was being sent into the wilderness once again, alone and without her husband by her side. The kingdom watched in silence as the queen of Ayodhya, once revered and loved, was cast out from her rightful place. Rama, standing at the palace gates, watched as his beloved wife disappeared into the distance. The pain in his chest was unbearable, and the loss was more than he could bear. He had made the decision, but in doing so, he had lost the very thing he had fought for, the woman who had stood by him through every trial, every victory. His mind, though set on his duty, could not escape the anguish of his heart. But even in his grief, Rama knew that his actions had to reflect the greater dharma, the greater law. As king, he had a responsibility to uphold the sanctity of his kingdom, and the whispers of his people could not be ignored. Yet, the cost of this decision was far higher than he had anticipated. His own soul was torn, his heart broken, as he watched Sita vanish from his life once again. The kingdom, though outwardly restored, now felt empty. Rama's return had been marked by joy, but with Sita's exile, the kingdom had once again been plunged into sorrow. The people, though they understood the reasoning behind the decision, could not help but feel the loss. The light of Ayodhya seemed to dim without Sita's presence, and Rama, though he continued to rule with wisdom and justice, could not escape the weight of the loneliness that had descended upon him. Sita's departure marked a turning point, not only in Rama's personal journey, but in the journey of the kingdom itself. The people of Ayodhya, though they had once celebrated Rama's return, now faced the reality of a king who, despite his divinity, was still a man bound by the demands of his duty. The kingdom had been restored to peace, but the personal cost was immeasurable. Rama, left alone with the responsibilities of ruling, understood that the choices he had made would forever alter his life and the future of Ayodhya. The kingdom was at peace, but his heart was not. The burden of kingship, now heavier than ever, pressed down on him as he faced a future without Sita by his side. The road ahead would be one of challenges, both as a ruler and as a man who had lost the love of his life. With Sita's exile, Rama's journey had entered a new phase, a phase that would test not just his strength and resolve but his very soul. In the wilderness, far from the comforts of the royal palace, Sita's life took on a new rhythm. Her days, once filled with the joy of love and companionship, were now marked by solitude and reflection. Exiled from Ayodhya, she found herself alone in the harsh yet tranquil embrace of nature. But in this period of exile, the gods, in their infinite wisdom, blessed Sita with the greatest gift she could receive in her suffering, the birth of twin sons. As the months passed, the weight of Sita's exile and the loneliness she had endured seemed to melt away as she gave birth to Lava and Kusha, her twin sons. The wilderness, once a place of sorrow, now became a sanctuary, for in the hearts of these two young boys, Sita found the love and strength that had been taken from her. The boys, though born in a place of exile, were destined for greatness. From the moment they entered the world, they seemed to carry the legacy of their father within them, and the divine blessing of their lineage shone in their eyes. Lava and Kusha, though raised away from the grandeur of the palace, grew up in the care and wisdom of their mother. Sita, though heartbroken, poured all her love into her sons, teaching them the ways of dharma, of right and wrong, and the importance of righteousness. Her heart, though torn from her separation from Rama, swelled with pride as she watched them grow. They were not just her sons. They were a living reminder of the love and bond she had shared with Rama. She knew that their destiny was tied to the legacy of their father, though the path ahead for them was yet unknown. As Lava and Kusha grew older, they became strong and wise, showing signs of both their mother's resilience and their father's divine nature. Their hearts were pure and their minds sharp. They learned the ways of the forest, their skills honed through the teachings of Sita and the experiences of their exile. They were not merely children. They were warriors in their own right, prepared by the trials of their birth to one day step into the legacy of their father. Though they lived far from Ayodhya, the stories of their father, Rama, reached them through the teachings of their mother. She spoke to them of the great battles he had fought, of his unwavering devotion to dharma, and of his love for her. But she also spoke of the pain and sorrow of their separation, of the trials she had endured, and of the sacrifices that had been made. The boys listened intently, their hearts filling with the stories of their father, a figure they had never met, but whose presence loomed large in their lives. As the years passed, Lava and Kusha's strength grew, and with it, their sense of purpose. They began to train in the arts of combat, mastering the skills of archery, swordplay, and the ways of a warrior. Their spirits were fierce, but tempered by the wisdom their mother had imparted to them. They carried within them not just the blood of their father, but the teachings of dharma, the guidance of righteousness, and the unbreakable bond of family. Sita, though separated from Rama, found comfort in the knowledge that her sons were growing into the men they were destined to be. She knew that the time would come when they would meet their father, but she also understood the complexities of the journey ahead. Their reunion would not be a simple one. It would be fraught with the weight of history, of the trials of their parents, and of the questions that had been left unanswered for so long. But for now, in the quiet of the wilderness, Sita watched her sons with pride. They had grown into warriors, into young men who carried the potential to continue their father's legacy. Their bond was unshakable, and their future was bright. Yet, even as she looked upon them with love, Sita knew that their destiny, like her own, was bound by the struggles of the past. Their journey would eventually lead them back to Ayodhya, to their father, to the heart of the kingdom where their story would come full circle. As Lava and Kusha matured, their skills grew, and they became more aware of the world beyond their exile. The stories their mother had told them of Rama, of the kingdom they were once part of, sparked a desire in them to one day meet the man who was their father. They longed to know the man who had been the hero of their mother's life, the man whose name had been spoken with reverence and admiration. But their journey toward that meeting was still a distant one, and Sita, though proud of her sons, knew that the road ahead would not be without its challenges. The reunion with Rama, their father, was inevitable, but it was not yet time. Sita's heart ached for the day when the two worlds would collide, the world of exile and the kingdom of Ayodhya. But as she watched Lava and Kusha grow into young men of great strength and wisdom, she knew that the day would come when their story, intertwined with the story of Rama, would reach its own destined conclusion. With each passing day, the time drew nearer, the day when the sons of Rama, Lava, and Kusha would meet their father and bring the story of their birth to its final chapter. The legacy of their father, the hero who had fought to restore Dharma, would now be carried on through them. And as they prepared for the momentous day when they would reunite with Rama, Sita's heart, though heavy with the memories of exile and loss, was filled with hope for the future that awaited them all. With Lava and Kusha maturing into strong and wise young men, the story now began to shift toward the inevitable reunion between father and sons, a moment that would forever change their lives and the future of Ayodhya. The winds of destiny blew fiercely in the forests surrounding Ayodhya as Lava and Kusha, now grown into strong and capable warriors, prepared for the moment that would change their lives forever. The world they had known, the life of exile with their mother, had shaped them into skilled fighters, wise beyond their years. They had spent their youth training in the arts of war, honing their skills with weapons and strategy, preparing for the day they would seek out the father they had never known. For years, they had heard the stories of Rama, the heroic prince who had fought to restore Dharma, the noble ruler of Ayodhya, the man who had been a distant figure in their mother's heart. And though they had been raised in the wilderness, Sita's words had always kept their father alive in their hearts. But they knew little of the full truth, of the complexities of their parents' love, or the trials that had led to their birth. All they knew was that their journey was destined to bring them face to face with the man who, despite the distance, had always been a part of them. In their hearts, a sense of justice burned, an eagerness to prove themselves, not just to each other, but to the man who had given them life. And so, one fateful day, they ventured into the kingdom of Ayodhya, unaware that the time had come to finally meet the man who was both their father and the king. The city, still healing from the wounds of war and the burden of kingship, was unaware that this meeting was about to unfold, that the children of Rama would soon challenge him to battle, not knowing the truth of their lineage. The confrontation began unexpectedly, as the two young warriors, their hearts filled with righteous fury, approached the gates of the palace where Rama held court. They had heard of the great king's rule, his unwavering sense of dharma, but they also knew that their mother's exile had left them with unresolved questions. In their hearts, a deep-seated frustration had grown. How could their father have allowed Sita to endure the hardships of exile? Why had he, in their eyes, cast her aside, despite her unwavering love and faith? With the confidence of warriors who had fought countless battles in the wilderness, Lava and Kusha demanded to face Rama in a contest of strength. The people gathered around, curious and confused as to who these two young men were and why they had come to challenge the king. Rama, sitting upon his throne, was unaware of the connection these young men had to him. He knew only that they were formidable opponents. Their challenge issued with a fire that mirrored his own. The battle that ensued was fierce. Lava and Kusha fought with the strength and skill that had been nurtured by years of hardship and training. Their movements were fluid, their attacks precise, and each blow struck with the power of the gods. Rama, ever the warrior, met their strikes with equal force. His heart, though burdened by the trials he had faced, did not waver in the face of combat. The clash of their weapons echoed through the palace grounds, the ground shaking with the intensity of the fight. As the battle raged on, Rama's heart grew heavy, a sense of unease creeping into his soul. The ferocity of the two warriors reminded him of something, a strength, a presence that he had not felt in years. Each movement of the young fighters seemed to resonate within him, and a strange feeling of familiarity swept over him. The more he fought, the more the connection to these warriors felt undeniable. But it was only when a moment of pause came, as the dust settled around them, that the truth became clear. Rama, weary but resolute, spoke to them. You fight with great strength and courage. But why do you challenge me so fiercely? Tell me, who are you?" The silence that followed was heavy with tension. Lava and Kusha, their chests heaving with the exertion of battle, looked at one another. They had come to Ayodhya seeking answers, but they had not expected the truth to be revealed in such a violent manner. "My name is Lava," said one of them, his voice filled with both pride and uncertainty. "And I am Kusha," said the other, their words heavy with emotion. "We are the sons of Sita, and you are our father Rama." The revelation hit Rama like a thunderclap, and for a moment, everything seemed to stand still. The world around him, the kingdom he had fought to protect, the people he had ruled with such steadfast devotion, all faded into the background. His sons, his own flesh and blood, stood before him, warriors in their own right, bearing the legacy of both their mother and their father. The weight of the truth settled over him like a great storm. He had never known that his sons were alive, had never known the joy of seeing them grow, of nurturing them, of being the father they had deserved. His heart, though filled with love for his sons, also burned with the pain of what had been lost. He had made choices, difficult choices, in the name of dharma and duty, but the consequences of those choices had been far more profound than he could have ever imagined. Tears welled up in Rama's eyes as he looked at Lava and Kusha, his sons, standing before him. The emotional turmoil that had gripped him since Sita's exile now surged to the forefront. He had exiled his wife, had sent her into the wilderness, believing that his duty as king came first, and now he saw the painful result of those decisions. "My sons," Rama said, his voice thick with emotion, I never knew you were alive, that you had endured so much. I failed you both, and I failed your mother. I can never undo the pain I caused, but know this, I love you, and I am proud of you." Lava and Kusha, though initially filled with anger and confusion, saw the sincerity in their father's eyes. They had fought him, tested him, because they had been taught to believe in the righteousness of their father's heart. Now, standing before him, they understood that the pain they had all endured had not been in vain. Their reunion, though painful, was a moment of healing for all involved. The battle that had begun with swords now ended with an embrace, a reunion not just of father and sons, but of a family torn apart by duty, circumstance, and fate. The emotional weight of this moment would linger in their hearts forever, but it also marked the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter where the ties of blood, love, and family would help heal the wounds that had been caused by the years of separation. As the dust settled and the people of Ayodhya looked on in awe, the family, reunited at last, prepared to face the future together. The journey that had begun with exile and separation had now come full circle, and though the road ahead would be challenging, it was one they would walk together, as a family, united in their shared destiny. The reunion with Lava and Kusha was, in many ways, a healing balm for Rama's soul. The discovery of his sons, born of Sita and himself, had restored something within him that had been lost for years. They were the living proof of his love for her, the embodiment of everything he had fought for. But despite this joy, there remained an undeniable weight pressing on his heart, a burden that could not be lifted simply by the presence of his sons. The shadows of the past still lingered, casting doubt on the path that lay ahead. Rama, now more aware than ever of the complexity of his life and his choices, knew that the most painful decision still lay before him. Sita, his beloved wife, had been exiled not by her own fault, but by his own actions. He had asked her to undergo the trial by fire to prove her purity, a decision that had wounded her deeply. He had made that choice in the name of dharma, but now, with the return of his sons and the weight of time behind him, he felt the full emotional toll of his earlier decisions. He had always been a man bound by duty to his people, to his kingdom, and to the gods. But in the quiet moments of reflection, the walls of duty seemed less clear, and the love he felt for Sita became the lens through which he now saw everything. His heart, though filled with affection for his sons and pride in their strength, ached for the woman he had sent away. The time had come to heal the wounds he had caused. It was time to bring Sita back into his life. But the path to Sita's return was not as simple as merely sending for her. The trials she had endured, the doubts of her purity in the eyes of the people, and the emotional toll of exile had left scars that could not be easily healed. Sita, though strong and devoted, had suffered beyond words, and Rama knew that the road to reconciliation would be paved with both joy and sorrow. His kingdom, though restored to peace, had yet to recover from the personal trials that had tested their family. Rama, now more than ever, understood that his duty as a king could not be fulfilled without first restoring harmony within his own family. He sought counsel with his ministers, his elders, and his trusted advisors. He knew that the people of Ayodhya would question Sita's return, as they had questioned her purity before. But Rama also knew that this was a battle he had to fight not with weapons, but with his heart and his commitment to dharma. He could not lead a kingdom that was at peace if his own home was divided. With a heart full of determination, Rama made the decision to call for Sita's return to Ayodhya. He sent word to her, not with a formal command, but with a humble request. He asked her to return to the kingdom, to return to him, and to reclaim her rightful place as his queen. Though their past had been fraught with pain and separation, Rama hoped that this was the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where love, duty, and family could finally coexist in harmony. Sita, living in the quiet solitude of the forest, had long since come to terms with her fate. She had endured the exile, the trial by fire, and the separation from her husband, all in the name of dharma. Her heart had never wavered in her devotion to Rama, but the years of living apart, of carrying the burden of doubt and exile, had changed her. She had borne the pain with grace, but the call of Ayodhya, the call of home, had never truly left her heart. When the message from Rama arrived, it came as a quiet relief, a moment of peace after the long years of separation. The words were simple, yet they carried with them the weight of all that had passed. Rama was asking for her to return, asking for the healing of their hearts. Sita, though uncertain of how her return would be received, knew that she could not remain in the forest forever. Her duty to Rama, to her children, and to Ayodhya called her back. And so, Sita returned. The journey to Ayodhya was not easy, and the emotional burden weighed heavily on her heart. She had endured so much, and yet she knew that her return would not be without its challenges. The whispers of doubt, the judgments of the people, and the pain of her past, these would all resurface in the hearts of those who had once revered her as queen. But despite the uncertainty, Sita was resolute. She had loved Rama with all her heart, and she had always believed in the righteousness of his choices, even when they had caused her suffering. When Sita finally entered the gates of Ayodhya, she was met with the mixed emotions of the people. There were cheers, yes, but there were also lingering doubts. The eyes of the kingdom were on her, watching her every step, as though waiting for something to confirm what they had feared for so long. Yet, as she approached the palace, the love between her and Rama, though strained, still held firm. Rama stood at the palace gates, his heart both heavy and full. His eyes met Sita's, and in that gaze, everything was understood. The pain, the separation, the trials, they were all there, but so was the love. Sita had returned, not just to the kingdom, but to him, and despite the weight of the past, they were whole again. The reunion, though deeply emotional, marked the beginning of a new phase in their journey together. Sita had been restored to her rightful place by Rama's side, and the kingdom of Ayodhya, though still healing, now stood on the edge of a new era. Yet, even as peace settled over the land, there were still personal challenges to be faced. The wounds of the past would not be easily healed, and the path ahead was filled with both light and shadow. With Sita's return, the story of Rama and his kingdom entered a new chapter, but the personal and moral dilemmas that had shaped their lives still loomed large. The trials of the past had not been erased by time, but they had been confronted. The family, though reunited, now had to navigate the complexities of their past decisions. As Ayodhya settled into peace, the focus shifted from the external battles of war to the internal battles of the heart. Rama and Sita, once separated by fate, now stood side by side, but the emotional scars they carried would take time to heal. The final phase of their journey had begun, one that would test not just their love, but their ability to reconcile the past with the future. As the years passed, Rama's kingdom of Ayodhya flourished under his just and wise rule. The streets were filled with prosperity, the markets brimming with life, and the temples alive with the sounds of prayer and devotion. The people, once divided by war and sorrow, now stood united under Rama's leadership. The kingdom had been restored to its former glory, and peace reigned throughout the land. Yet, despite the outward signs of success, Rama could not escape the quiet, unrelenting pressure of his inner struggles. The burdens of kingship, those that weighed on his heart and mind, had not lessened with time. The demands of ruling, the complexities of dharma, and the shadows of his past decisions continued to haunt him. Though the kingdom thrived, the personal trials that defined his life were far from over. Rama, despite his divine nature, was still a man who bore the emotional scars of exile, of duty, and of the decisions that had shaped his destiny. His love for Sita, though unshaken, had been tested time and again, and now, as he sat upon his throne, the complexities of their relationship continued to weave through his every action. The weight of his earlier decisions, the exile of Sita, the trial by fire, and the separation that had marked their lives, lingered in the quiet spaces of his heart. Though he had brought peace to his kingdom, the struggle to reconcile his role as a king with his personal desires remained. Even as the kingdom enjoyed prosperity, the whispers of doubt, of those who questioned his every move, continued to surface. Though he had led his people to victory, Rama knew that his greatest trials lay not in war or battle, but in the quiet decisions he had to make as a ruler, decisions that would shape the future of Ayodhya for generations to come. As the kingdom thrived, Rama's leadership was put to the ultimate test. His strength, wisdom, and faith were called upon one last time as a new challenge emerged, one that would test not just his ability as a king, but his ability to navigate the complexities of dharma in a world that was constantly shifting beneath his feet. Rama, once the warrior prince who had fought for righteousness, now found himself fighting a different battle, a battle for the hearts of his people and the future of his kingdom. As the days grew shorter and the seasons changed, the kingdom's prosperity became intertwined with the very personal and moral dilemmas that had plagued him throughout his reign. Rama was a man of faith, a man who had always sought to do what was right. But now, in the twilight of his rule, the choices before him seemed more complicated than ever. His love for Sita, the woman who had been with him through all the trials of exile, war, and heartache, continued to guide his actions, but the weight of leadership made it impossible to find peace. The kingdom had been restored, but what of his own heart? What of the decisions that would define the legacy he would leave behind? What would the future hold for his sons, Lava and Kusha, and for Ayodhya itself? Even as the kingdom settled into peace, the ever-present tension between duty and personal happiness remained. Rama's sense of justice, his commitment to dharma, had been tested countless times. But now, as his reign entered its final phase, he knew that the time had come for him to face the ultimate trial of his life. His leadership, his ability to rule with wisdom and compassion, would determine not just his legacy, but the future of Ayodhya. The trials he faced now were not ones of battle or war, but of the soul. The challenges of kingship had taken their toll, and Rama knew that the journey ahead would not be an easy one. Though the kingdom was at peace, the path forward was uncertain. The land had been healed, but what of his heart? What of the personal sacrifices he had made in the name of duty? As the kingdom continued to thrive, the weight of his choices grew heavier. Rama's once clear vision of dharma had become clouded by the complexities of leadership. His strength, though still formidable, was tested by the quiet doubts that now filled his mind. Would his reign be remembered for the peace he had brought, or for the personal sacrifices that had defined his rule? The burden of his actions, the exile of Sita, the trial of his sons, the decisions made in the name of duty, was no longer something he could escape. In the stillness of the royal palace, Rama often found himself lost in thought, contemplating the legacy he would leave behind. He had fulfilled his duty as a king, a warrior, and a husband. Yet the path ahead was not one of simple resolution. It was a path of introspection, of facing the consequences of his actions, and of preparing for the final journey that lay ahead. The final trials of Rama's reign were not ones of military conquest, but of spiritual and emotional resolution. The struggles he had faced, both on the battlefield and within himself, were now culminating in a moment of quiet reflection. He knew that his journey was coming to an end, and as the kingdom of Ayodhya rested in peace, the time had come for him to confront the final chapter of his life. With the kingdom at peace and the world seemingly at rest, Rama understood that his personal trials, his moral dilemmas, and his quest for inner peace were the true final battles he would face. The stage was set for his ultimate journey, one that would lead him to a deeper understanding of his purpose and the legacy he would leave behind for his sons and his kingdom. As the story of Rama continued, it shifted away from the kingdom's external peace to the internal journey that would define his final days. The time for ruling had passed, and now it was time for Rama to face the truths within his soul. The sun had begun its slow descent over the kingdom of Ayodhya, casting long shadows across the palace grounds. The streets, once filled with the vibrant sounds of celebration, were now quieter, the echoes of past joy replaced by a deep, solemn stillness. The kingdom had flourished under Rama's rule. His life's work was complete, and the legacy he had built would endure through the ages. Yet, the time had come for him to leave behind the world he had known, to step away from the throne he had once inherited, and to ascend to the heavens as it had been prophesied. Rama, now an elder, sat in the royal gardens, the weight of his journey evident in the quiet lines etched upon his face. His body, once the epitome of strength, had grown weary over the years, but his spirit remained unbroken. The path he had walked, full of victories and defeats, joy and sorrow, had brought him to this moment. He had fought for righteousness, for the restoration of dharma, and for the protection of his kingdom. His love for Sita, his devotion to his sons, and his duty to his people had shaped every decision he had made. And now, as the time for his departure drew near, he understood that his life's work was complete. The kingdom of Ayodhya was in the hands of his sons, Lava and Kusha. The day had come for Rama to pass on the mantle of leadership, for they were the future of the kingdom, the continuation of his legacy. He had taught them well, instilling in them the values of dharma, the importance of wisdom, and the need for compassion in their rule. The future of Ayodhya was now theirs to guide, and Rama knew that they would rule with the same integrity and strength that he had strived to uphold. Yet, as he looked out across the peaceful kingdom, a sense of melancholy washed over him. His life, though fulfilling, had been filled with trials. The pain of exile, the sacrifices made for the greater good, the burdens of kingship, it all seemed to culminate in this final moment. But despite the sorrow, there was also a profound sense of peace. Rama knew that his time in the mortal world had come to an end, and he was at peace with the knowledge that his mission had been fulfilled. The kingdom would endure, his dharma would live on, and his legacy would never fade. As he sat in quiet contemplation, Sita, his beloved wife, approached him. Her presence, though softened by time, still held the same grace and strength that had marked their love from the beginning. She had stood by him through all the trials, sharing in both the joys and the heartaches of their journey. Now, as he prepared to leave the mortal world, her eyes met his with a knowing gaze, one that spoke of the deep bond they shared and the love that had transcended all obstacles. "Rama," she said softly, her voice filled with both sorrow and acceptance, "you have fulfilled your duty as a king, as a husband, and as a father, your journey has been long and difficult, but it is now time for you to return to the heavens. I will continue to honor your memory, and I know that Ayodhya will thrive under the leadership of our sons. You have done all that was asked of you." Rama looked at her with love, his heart filled with gratitude for the strength and wisdom she had brought into his life. "Sita, my heart is at peace knowing that you and our sons will continue the work we began together. Our time here has been a journey, but it is now time for me to fulfill my divine purpose. I will leave this world, but my love for you and my devotion to Dharma will never fade." With a final embrace, Rama and Sita shared a moment of deep connection, one that transcended time and space. The love they had shared, the trials they had endured, and the legacy they had built together were now part of the eternal fabric of the universe. Sita, though heartbroken, knew that Rama's departure was the fulfillment of the divine plan, and she would carry the memories of their life together in her heart. Rama then turned to his sons, Lava and Kusha, who had come to stand by his side. They were no longer children, but young men capable of carrying the weight of the kingdom on their shoulders. He gazed at them with pride, knowing that they would lead Ayodhya with wisdom and honor. "My sons," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "the time has come for me to leave this world, but know that I am proud of you both. You are the future of Ayodhya, and I have every confidence that you will lead with the same strength and integrity that has guided me. Remember always the values of Dharma and the importance of compassion. You carry the legacy of our family, and it is now your turn to protect and guide the people of this kingdom." Lava and Kusha, their hearts heavy with both sorrow and pride, nodded in understanding. They had been raised to carry the mantle of leadership, and now, as their father prepared to depart, they understood the magnitude of the responsibility that awaited them. Though they would never forget their father's wisdom and love, they were ready to step into their roles as rulers of Ayodhya. As the sun set on the horizon, casting its golden light over the kingdom, Rama's time on earth came to an end. Surrounded by his loved ones, his heart filled with peace, he prepared to ascend to the heavens, his divine mission fulfilled. The earth had been restored to Dharma, and the world would remember his name as a beacon of righteousness and justice. With his ascension, Rama left behind not just a kingdom, but a legacy that would endure forever. His influence, though he was no longer physically present, would live on in the hearts of his people, in the rule of his sons, and in the teachings of Dharma that would guide generations to come. The final chapter of Rama's earthly existence had begun, but his spirit, his love, and his commitment to justice would transcend time. His journey had come full circle, and the world would never forget the divine king who had restored peace, love, and righteousness to the earth. Rama's name and legacy spread far beyond the kingdom of Ayodhya, transcending time and place. His life, full of trials, triumphs, and unwavering devotion to Dharma, became a guiding light for generations to come. As the years passed, his teachings echoed in the hearts of those who sought to live virtuously. His story was not just one of a king and a warrior, but a reflection of the eternal struggle between good and evil, of duty and love, of righteousness and compassion. The Ramayana, the epic that told of his life, became more than just a story. It became a manual for living, an enduring guide for those who wished to walk the path of virtue. People from all walks of life turned to his example for wisdom, his ability to lead with compassion, his unshakable resolve to do what was right despite the pain it brought him, became the cornerstone of his enduring influence. His legacy became intertwined with the fabric of Dharma itself, truth, justice, and the pursuit of righteousness. As the story of Rama continued to be told, from generation to generation, his example was not merely remembered, but lived. Kings who followed his reign sought to emulate his wisdom and courage. Common people, inspired by his unwavering commitment to doing what was right, made his life a model to follow. The world, though it changed, continued to look back at Rama's life for the wisdom to guide them through the complexities of their own. Rama's teachings, rooted in selfless service, duty, and love, became the foundation upon which entire societies were built. He had taught that dharma, living in alignment with the truth of the universe, was the highest ideal, and though his physical presence was no longer among them, his influence lived on in every action that sought justice, in every word that spoke truth, in every heart that loved unconditionally. Even in the most difficult times, when people were confronted with the complexities of life and leadership, they turned to Rama's example. They asked themselves, how would Rama have acted in this situation? What would he have done to restore peace, to uphold justice, to protect the vulnerable? And in doing so, his legacy continued to shape the world. Though Rama's earthly reign had come to an end, his name would live forever. His story became not just a part of history, but a part of the eternal human experience. A reminder that the pursuit of dharma, the commitment to righteousness, and the love for others were not just lofty ideals, but principles that, when followed, could transform the world. Rama's life was a testament to the idea that true leadership did not come from power alone, but from integrity, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to what was right. The impact of his rule, his journey, and his sacrifices could still be felt in the hearts of those who chose to live by the principles he had exemplified. And as time went on, the world continued to carry the lessons he had taught. The Kiyate kingdom of Ayodhya may have flourished under the reign of his sons, but Rama's spirit and teachings lived on in every corner of the world. His influence transcended the walls of his palace and the boundaries of his kingdom, forever embedded in the hearts and minds of those who aspired to live virtuously. The world would continue to turn, generations would rise and fall, but the legacy of Rama, the divine king, the devoted husband, the righteous warrior, would endure forever. Through the stories passed down, through the actions of those who followed his path, his spirit would remain a guiding light, one that illuminated the way for all who sought to live with honor, to seek truth, and to uphold the eternal values of dharma. And so, even as the pages of history continued to turn, Rama's legacy, like the eternal stars in the sky, would never fade. His life, his journey, and the lessons he imparted would remain forever, a beacon for those who sought to follow in his footsteps, a testament to the power of love, truth, and righteousness in the face of every trial life presents. As the eternal cosmic wheel turned, the gods watched from their celestial abodes, reflecting on the life and journey of the Prince of Ayodhya. Rama's life had been more than a series of mortal events. It had been the unfolding of divine will, the manifestation of dharma in human form. His trials, his triumphs, and his unwavering devotion to righteousness were not just part of a narrative. They were part of a divine purpose, carefully orchestrated to restore balance to the world. The gods, ever watchful and wise, saw how Rama's life mirrored the eternal struggle between good and evil, light and darkness. His birth, his exile, his battles, and his eventual ascension to the heavens were all part of a grand plan that transcended the human realm. Each step he took, though filled with suffering and sacrifice, was in accordance with the divine law of dharma, a law that governed not just the lives of kings and warriors, but of all beings in the universe. In Rama's unwavering commitment to truth, in his selfless sacrifices, in his protection of dharma, even at the cost of his own personal happiness, the gods saw the embodiment of their own divine principles. They recognized in him a perfect vessel of their will, one who would, through his life and actions, restore the balance of the cosmos. His struggles were not in vain. They were necessary, for only through such trials could the world be set right. The gods, through their divine foresight, understood that Rama's life was not just about restoring his kingdom or rescuing his wife. It was about restoring the moral order of the universe itself. His story was a living testament to the eternal struggle between good and evil, the battle between righteousness and adharma. Each challenge he faced, whether it was the exile from his kingdom, the separation from Sita, or the war against Ravana, was a test of his devotion to dharma. And through each trial, he had proven that dharma would always prevail, even in the face of immense personal sacrifice. As Rama ascended to the heavens, the gods watched in silent reverence. His journey, though filled with pain, had been one of unparalleled spiritual greatness. In his final moments on earth, Rama had fulfilled his divine purpose, and his ascension was the culmination of a life lived in perfect alignment with Dharma. The heavens themselves seemed to rejoice in the completion of his earthly mission, for in his life, the divine had found a perfect reflection. The gods understood now, more than ever, that Rama's journey was not just his own. It was the journey of every soul that seeks truth, of every heart that struggles between the forces of good and evil. His life had shown that the path of Dharma is not an easy one. It is filled with trials, with moments of doubt, and with sacrifices that test even the strongest hearts. But it is also the only path that leads to true fulfillment, to peace, and to the restoration of cosmic order. In the Kyesa, quiet after Rama's departure, the gods reflected on the lessons his life had imparted. His story was not just a myth to be retold, it was a living lesson for all beings. It showed that Dharma must always come first, even when it is painful. It reminded the world that justice is not always easy, but it is always right. And it revealed that true love, like the bond between Rama and Sita, is never truly broken, even by the most insurmountable challenges. As Rama's story became legend, it would continue to inspire countless generations to come. His legacy would be carried forward in the hearts of those who sought to live virtuously, who aspired to be just, and who understood the importance of protecting Dharma in a world filled with uncertainty and chaos. The story of his life, his struggles, his victories, his sacrifices would serve as a beacon of hope for all who faced adversity. It would be a reminder that no matter how dark the world may seem, righteousness would always prevail, for those who walk the path of Dharma are never alone. The divine epilogue of Rama's life tied together all the threads of his journey, reinforcing the moral lessons that had guided him from the very beginning. His story was a reflection of the cosmic order, a mirror of the eternal truths that govern the universe. His life, full of divine purpose, had been a living manifestation of the struggle between good and evil, between righteousness and injustice. In the end, Rama's journey was not just about the earthly realm, it was about the balance of the universe, the restoration of Dharma, and the triumph of love over adversity. His legacy would endure forever, not just in the pages of scripture, but in the hearts of all who sought to live according to the highest ideals of truth, justice, and righteousness. The gods knew that the world would never forget Rama, for his life had become a symbol of what it meant to live in alignment with the divine will. And so, the final chapter of Rama's earthly existence came to an end, but his influence would never fade. His story would continue to guide and inspire, a testament to the enduring power of Dharma and the eternal struggle between good and evil. Rama's journey, though complete in the mortal realm, had become an eternal echo that resonated through the ages. His life, filled with profound sacrifices and unwavering commitment to Dharma, had left an indelible mark on the world. The lessons he imparted, the choices he made, and the trials he faced would transcend time, reaching the hearts and minds of all who came after him. His legacy would endure, shaping the world for generations to come. As the centuries passed, the story of Rama continued to inspire those who sought to live according to the highest ideals of righteousness, justice, and love. His name was invoked in prayers, his actions retold in sacred texts, and his virtues celebrated in every corner of the world. The teachings of Dharma, which had guided him throughout his life, became the guiding principles for those who sought to live virtuously. The path of Dharma, though filled with obstacles and challenges, was seen as the path that led to peace, to truth, and to ultimate fulfillment. In the land of Ayodhya, where his reign had been marked by peace and prosperity, the memory of Rama lived on in the hearts of his people. His sons, Lava and Kusha, who had followed in his footsteps as rulers of the kingdom, had ensured that his teachings remained the foundation of the kingdom's rule. Under their leadership, Ayodhya continued to thrive, and the legacy of their father was carried forward with wisdom and integrity. But Rama's influence was not limited to Ayodhya alone. The story of his life and the principles he embodied spread far and wide, reaching distant lands and distant hearts. In every corner of the world, from the farthest reaches of the mountains to the quietest villages by the sea, the name of Rama became synonymous with righteousness. His story was not just a tale of a king, it was a blueprint for living a life of virtue, honor, and devotion. The people who followed the path of Dharma found strength in his example. When faced with adversity, they remembered how Rama had confronted his trials with courage and wisdom. When they questioned the righteousness of their own decisions, they looked to Rama's unwavering commitment to justice. And when they struggled with the challenges of love, loyalty, and sacrifice, they found solace in the story of Rama's devotion to Sita. His journey, full of pain and triumph, became the ultimate guide for those who sought to navigate the complexities of life. In the hearts of those who lived according to Dharma, Rama's legacy was alive. His life had shown them that no matter the trials they faced, no matter how difficult the path, Dharma was the eternal guiding light that would lead them toward truth and peace. His unwavering devotion to his duty, his ability to balance the demands of kingship with the responsibilities of family, and his unshakable commitment to righteousness had set a standard that would forever inspire those who walked the path of virtue. As time went on, the story of Rama continued to echo through the annals of history. It became a story that transcended religious and cultural boundaries, a universal tale of the struggle between good and evil, between righteousness and adharma. The story of Rama became a beacon for all those who sought to live a life of integrity, for his teachings were not bound by time or place. They were eternal, rooted in the very essence of existence itself. The sages, the teachers, and the philosophers who came after him often spoke of Rama, and his life became the subject of countless discussions and debates. In every temple, in every gathering, his name was invoked as a symbol of the highest moral ideal. His story was not just remembered, it was lived, with every act of kindness, every effort to seek justice, and every moment spent in devotion to Dharma. Rama's life had set a precedent for the ages, and his teachings became the foundation of a just and righteous world. In the end, the story of Rama was not just a story, it was a living, breathing presence that would never fade. His teachings would continue to inspire, his actions would continue to guide, and his legacy would continue to shape the world for as long as time itself endured. The divine principles that Rama had embodied, dharma, righteousness, selfless duty, and unyielding love, became immortal. They would never be lost, for they were woven into the very fabric of existence. As long as humanity continued to strive for goodness, as long as the pursuit of truth remained, Rama's story would echo throughout eternity. The story of Rama, a king and a warrior, a husband and a father, would live forever, not just in the pages of history, but in the hearts of those who followed the path of Dharma. His legacy, eternal and unbroken, would guide humanity toward a future where justice, love, and righteousness would always triumph. And so, as the ages passed, the final chapter of Rama's earthly existence faded into the distance, but his influence, like the sun that never sets, remained ever present. His life and his teachings continued to illuminate the world, guiding every soul that sought the light of Dharma, ensuring that his eternal echo would never fade.